Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikalela letwe leto na bantu balo. Musile ukulungu kwepondo letu. Kosi sikalela I Afrika, kina abantwana bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, yeniki ukolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning, honorable members. I have to announce that due to the loss of the membership of Mr. P.T. de Villiers of the Good Party, a vacancy occurred in the representation of the Good Party in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. This vacancy has since been filled by the nomination of Ms. S. Little with effect from the 25th of March 2024. Ms. S. Little was sworn in my office on the 25th of March 2024. Honourable members, please allow me an opportunity to welcome Honourable Little to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Honourable members, as has been our practice to date, Order members. Honourable members, as has been our practice to date, honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House, both here from the chamber with the presiding officer and the table staff and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings. Honourable members, if you're experiencing challenges in connecting to the sitting, you are requested to contact the WCPP ICT colleagues who will assist to resolve your connectivity issues. Honourable members, I would like to highlight that the quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules, and unless there's an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Members who are considered out of order by the presiding officer will have their microphones muted and called to order. The Sergeant at Arms have recorded members' attendance. Honourable members, the media have also been granted access to the MS Teams meeting as guests of the WCPP. However, I wish to remind the members of the press that they may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. Honourable members, as normal, language translation services are available in the chamber and on via Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members participating in the sitting of the House must please access the language translation services via a second device. And if you have earphones available, please use them for the language translation. Honourable members, I wish to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I wish to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, I'm going to ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Ngoto, Wesasolabo Mali, le Sebe, le Office Ngulumbuso, Yanchana Kolon.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Premier, Premier Windy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Speaker, Honourable Speaker, to you, to my cabinet colleagues, to the Leader of the Opposition, to the honourable members of this House, and also allow me to the newest member of this House, welcome, to the DG and all of the officials of the Department of the Premier, to all the officials in our government, actually, to distinguished guests, those of you up in the gallery, thank you very much for being here. And of course, to the citizens of this province. We are at the end of our term. Yesterday was the last second reading debate in this House. You can feel that we are moving to an election. If you listen to the comments and interjections, the excitement in the room, or could I say the tension in the room. Of course, it is the time that the citizens make choices again, but it was also the last of many things. And this being the last,
Order, members.
this being the last tabling of the budget of this term for the Department of the Premier. It is my privilege to table this budget, the 2024 budget. And Speaker, I must start off by talking about dignity. Deepening dignity underpins all that we do. It is the foundation of our government's pledges and priorities. Dignity is about being able to walk in your neighborhood without fear of being gunned down in a gang shooting. Dignity is about having a job, to provide for your family, to put food on your table. That's real dignity. Dignity must be offered through a healthcare system that is responsive and caring. Dignity means being able to send your children to school knowing that they will receive a quality education that prepares them to become economically active citizens who can add to our shared success and vision, to enable them to lead dignified lives and to be a better future. Speaker, we are also entering a new digital age. Our digital and technology capabilities are an extension of the services that we offer. We are further empowering and enabling our citizens, preparing them for the future. Innovation is also a core value in our government, one which we are leveraging across departments to improve services. The Western Cape government has rolled out more than 1,600 public Wi-Fi hotspots across this province, with 6 gigabytes of free data per device offered to citizens. Since 2019, the Western Cape e-centers have become as much a part of our neighborhoods as your local spaza shop or eating spot or your school or clinic. And we've rolled out more than 70 of these computer and internet centers. Residents are fully utilizing these resources. More than 2 million sessions were logged at our e-centers between 2019 and 2024. At our e-centers, young people can use the internet to search for jobs. They are assisted by trained staff to draw up CVs. They can then email these CVs to prospective employers and can print copies for free. And of course, once they get an interview, they could utilize a voucher that has now been rolled out to get to that interview. Soon we will be able to take our services on the road, literally. In the coming days, we are launching our new mobile e-center bus, which will bring our services closer to our citizens, specifically in far-flung rural communities. Speaker, we should not teach technology, but rather embrace it, specifically the likes of artificial intelligence. We cannot avoid AI. To ignore its benefits would be tantamount to ignoring reality and the demands and needs of our fast-growing economy and province. The Department of the Premier's main budget in this budget book for 2024-25 this year is for just slightly over 2 billion rand. Compared to the 2023-24 budget, the overall budget decreases by 1.78%. Of course, that decrease comes from a projected lesser spend in the broadband project as we move to broadband 2.0. It also is as a result of us having to cut. I think everyone knows that our government has had to cut across every single department. But Speaker, despite the constrained fiscal environment, we are turning over every rand in service of our citizens. Our department is investing in the following interventions that will be either initiated or upscaled for greater impact. The consolidating of broadband 1.0 service and finalizing procurement for the broadband 2.0 service and transitioning between the contracts with minimal disruption to network service. The department connects and provides ICT services to more than 28,000 corporate and health users, as well as connectivity to close to 1.2 million learners in our schools. It'll be for the developing of a policy guideline and roadmap for the utilization of AI technologies in the Western Cape government, for strengthening our cybersecurity measures, for consolidating and enhancing the new digital experience platform, DXP, to replace the current Western Cape government portal, expanding and optimizing our cloud services, and continuing to enable and implement and support digital transformation across our government. This is a government that encourages friendly competition, whether it is amongst departments or our employees or municipalities. A healthy sense of competition leads to innovation as well as self-reflection. We must consistently assess how we are faring, and we must always strive to do better. To keep up at Western Cape, or to keep up with the Western Cape government and to keep us on our toes, we strongly believe in ongoing training and education, and I'm therefore happy to report that the reconfiguration of our Provincial Training Institute to become an innovation hub with a refreshed curriculum is progressing well. This reconfiguration process will enable greater collaboration with partners and with stakeholders. Our province and country are still plagued with the current energy crisis. For over 15 years, relentless load shedding has severely hampered our growth potential. Our economy continues to bleed tens of millions of rand every single day, while rolling power cuts remain a disastrous reality. Since load shedding started, we have lost between 49 billion and 61 billion in real GDP and counting. And tracking this crisis with the urgency it deserves, going beyond our mandate to add more megawatts to our power system. I think everyone is aware of the 5,700 megawatts in this plan, and of course led ably by Mr. Albie Lester. Over the current medium-term expenditure framework, the Department of the Premier is ploughing in 103.4 million rand to help respond to this energy crisis. The Western Cape Energy Resilience Program, driven by the Energy Council, remains focused on the following interventions. Demand-side management program. This program will focus on supporting municipalities to design and implement demand-side management measures at scale, communicating campaigns to remind and help the public understand how they need to save electricity, promote and use energy efficiency products and services by government, citizens and businesses, and pilot a load management system to assist in managing power usage during peak hours. We've also got the emergency relief packs. 96,000 emergency load shedding relief packs will be provided to indigent households. And of course, 4,000 we know went to the households as identified by the Department of Social Development, specifically focusing on GBV shelters and our elderly. The rest primarily going to households via our education processes, linking to lower quintiles in our education system, so that our education progress in catch-up, etc., can continue, and we can make sure that we don't disadvantage our younger people as we move forward, and growing that very economy that I spoke about in the introductory remarks. Our municipal pool buying system to continue with further due diligence in establishing a market operator mechanism to enable municipalities to make an in-principle decision to warrant the formal establishment of a facility. The facility would be aimed at reducing the risks and costs of renewable energy, independent power producers and procurement. And at the moment, we have around about 2,000 megawatts in the pipeline across all of our municipalities this year alone. The development of the Western Cape Integrated Resource Plan. Of course, we need to have a resource plan so that we can give clear indication to the economy of exactly what that mix is going to be look like, what that mix looks like, how we're going to target and enable this energy infrastructure development and investment. Of course, we also want to thank the USAID program for helping us and funding towards the finalization of this program. Resourcing our core energy team also to coordinate and manage the initiatives of our energy resilience program, including resourcing specialists and specialist skills, not only for the province, but to enable our local governments across this province. Speaker, I must say that I'm humbly honored to serve our citizens. Everything we do is to offer you, the residents in our region, an environment where your dignity is upheld and protected to enable you to unlock our potential and become part of the success story of the Western Cape. It is through our residents that we can sustain an upward trajectory of our economy, and by encouraging our economic growth in products, development, and making sure that we work tirelessly with the citizens and partners across this province in service of our citizens for building and enabling a better province. Speaker, when you table a budget like this, I must think of our Western Cape government family, the 90,000 people who work for this government in service of our citizens. They are the invaluable interlocutors who make sure that these services are delivered, that we build this better province. And when I think about the programs that this department offers and the role that the Department of the Premier plays, it is really important to just understand the magnitude of this department called the Department of the Premier. I think it is centered in people management, and there, just yesterday, I received a report from the Public Service Commission, and you know, the Public Service Commission sometimes acts because people ask them to investigate something, but sometimes they also do independent investigations. They call it own accord investigations. And I got a report yesterday of an own accord investigation that they did into the people management systems. This is, excuse me, this is a review of our recruitment and selection processes. And I'm happy to say that we got 100% fully compliant. And that really goes a long way. And I must thank everyone in the people management team for the work that they do in how we recruit and how we build that team of 90,000 officials across this province. I must also commend them for our culture journey and the Topco competition that we entered into. And in the first entry, how we were recognized alongside 1,400 other businesses in the private sector across the African continent, and we are now in a global competition as the best place to work in the world. I must also think about the data management team, the ICT and tech team, and now AI team. I think about the corporate assurance team and the role that they play in identifying risks in our system and making sure that, or giving us that assurance that our business is running properly. The corporate communications team, and I think about the role that they play in making sure that we're getting our communications out, but also being receptive to those citizens. I think about First Thursdays and the thousands and thousands of citizens who've personally taken the time to come and engage with our government. Every First Thursday, they come and do so. And I want to thank the team that puts that First Thursdays together, the team that is responsive in making sure you take the detail in to go and work with that good idea or to go and fix that problem that is being raised. I think about the call center and those citizens who call directly in and having a look at the 1.4 million or over 1.4 million tickets that have been registered over this term. These are cases that are registered with the system and taken to fruition, and they're well above 90% conclusion rate. I think of the policy and strategy team, and of course, in an evolving ecosystem, pressure, not only climate change, grey listing, other economic pressures, ports and rail systems that are not working. Our policy and strategy has to respond all the time. I think about the monitoring and evaluation team and thank them for what they're doing, because if we don't monitor If we don't measure, if we don't evaluate, we cannot manage. I think about the international relations team and the role that they play in how we grow our economy and how we position ourselves as a government to the world, and how we welcome the world when they come to this province. I think of the PDIA team and how they've embedded PDIA into our everyday work. I think of the innovation team and how we embrace innovation to make sure that we better our government every single day. We innovate, and you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. You've got to innovate, and you've got to change, you've got to test, and you've got to trial. I think about the team that runs the MANCOs, the management committees, the committees of cabinet, the team that enables and helps our cabinet to run efficiently, the team that runs the PTMs and the management systems within our government. I think about the teams that run the PCFs and how we engage with our municipalities, or the team that enables the DG and myself to play a part in the national platforms, the PCCs and the Lehotlas. I think about the energy team. This .P team is an amazing team that is responsible for the core of government, is responsible for making sure that we hold it all together. And for them, I want to say thank you very much for everything that they do day and night to make sure that this government offers better services to its citizens. Lastly, I want to say to my own office, who are also there day and night, making sure that we're responsive to the citizens, making sure that we are holding it all together and giving me all the support that I need. I really do value that support day and night. I think of my family, and I want to thank them as well for the support that they give or have given over this last term. Speaker, it is an honor to be able to, at this last opportunity in the last budget cycle of this term, to table this just over 2 billion rand budget for debate here and for, I really hope, passing of this budget. Remembering that this province still is the only government in South Africa that deals with their budgets, that brings them to Parliament, that enables this process before the end of the financial year. And I want to commend everybody who enables that, because we can be proud of so many things that we do and achieve in this province. And this is another one of them, the only province in South Africa to do so, to pass and enable its budgets before the end of the financial year. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. I now recognise Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. It's good to have you back after the rather painful experience we experienced yesterday with your deputy. So thanks for being here. I want to say that I find it interesting that the Premier started off his speech talking about dignity. Because, Speaker, I mentioned yesterday in the second reading debate the fact that in the 5 years that this Premier has been Premier of the Western Cape, there has been absolutely no attempt to, in an ongoing way, build a culture of supporting human rights. And one of
Honourable Dugmore, my apologies for interrupting you. Can I please ask members and members in the gallery to please put your cell phones on silent to ensure that we don't interrupt the speaker on the floor, please. It was not
Okay.
Member Dugmore's phone. Honourable Dugmore, you may continue.
Yeah, thank you. So to build a culture of dignity and respect for human rights, whether they are human rights in this province or human rights of people around the world, you actually have to work at it. And that is the responsibility of the highest office in this province, the Department of the Premier. And we notice, for instance, that when talking about dignity and one looks at the incidences of racism and sexism at the University of Stellenbosch, to use one example, where young black students had their his laptop urinated upon, various other incidences of sexual harassment. This Premier and this administration have been absolutely silent on what is essential to the issue of dignity. When a young woman who's a supporter of the struggle of the Palestinian people simply had a Palestinian flag stuck in her car and was attacked in an incident of road rage, and her car damaged in Waterkant, close to where we are here. Once again, the issue of the dignity, the right of freedom of expression, this Premier and this government have been absolutely silent. And maybe the Premier through the Speaker doesn't realize it, but if you fail to build that culture of respect and dignity across race, across religion, across culture, that actually begins to create a particular perception of this government as being one that defends the rights of certain people. If you follow a particular religion, if you have a particular color to your skin, if you are poor, if you are rich, and that reality of this provincial government, who would rather defend the beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism, who offend, insult, and are racist in many cases towards those very victims, you begin to have a perception developing around you. And it's not surprising that the Premier, when he spoke here today, essentially made a swan song speech. You could hear, you know, the thank yous and so on. It's very clear that in his own heart, he doesn't believe that he's coming back as the Premier to this particular province. Yes, I'm not coming back. That's clear.
Order, members.
So that was the one issue. And then you would remember, Speaker, that during COVID, this Premier made a promise that this provincial government would produce a vaccine. Absolutely nothing happened from that province, from that promise. And yet again, he stands up in the legislature the other week and again today, and he promises, as he did in the committee, 5,700 megawatts of power. And when he was pressed in the standing committee, Speaker, to say, when will this power become available? He initially could not respond. And then he said between 18 months and 24 months. So he's not committing to a date, like he refused to commit to a date in regard to vaccines. So once again, it's a promise of this Premier, which is actually detached from reality, because the most important thing actually, which he also could not respond to, and that is another reason why the ANC rejects this particular vote, he could not tell us how much this power, this 5,700 megawatts of power, is actually going to cost the consumer. And he simply said, in his view, he thinks that it will be competitive. That was the way that he responded to this question. So in other words, in his own admission, over 103 million in this financial year alone, let aside the over 300 million that has been spent on the so-called energy resilience strategy for 3 years, since 3 years, they cannot answer the question as to how much this energy would cost. And that reveals a lot about who the Premier serves. It doesn't, if you have energy and you are wealthy, you don't mind what is the cost of that particular energy. But we've shown proof in this House by conducting an experiment, by going to the in the city to those areas provided by Eskom, taking 100 rand and buying electricity. And that 100 rand from Eskom gets you 44 units. But when you take the same 100 rand and you buy from the DA in the city, you get 22 units. Now, why is that? That is because the city of Cape Town, in addition to putting a surcharge above the NERSA charge, has also introduced other charges, which actually makes the electricity provided by the city more expensive than Eskom. And this is the DA. And we need to remember that they are actually forcing people to pay more for electricity than Eskom itself. And then we have this bizarre situation. My colleague, Honorable Vin Vogel, knows more about this. But essentially, you have a resistance and a uprising against, I believe it is the Cape or Gullis municipality, who literally wants to tax everyone, literally a sun tax, as the newspaper referred to it. And even this MEC speaker, who's now talking to the Premier, he is embarrassed about what his municipality is doing there, because the surcharge that they are putting above or imposing on every particular ratepayer there is creating major problems. Now, I also want to say, add a word of welcome to Honourable Member Little. I think I just hope, Member Little, that you come back next year, or sorry, later this year, and continue to make contribution. But we do know Honourable Member Little as a very hard-working councillor, someone connected to her community, and I'm sure that she will add immense value to this House. Now, Speaker, I also want to say to the House that at 11:30 this morning, we will be leading a press conference to actually announce that yesterday we formally submitted a PIA application to the DA information officer. And for those DA members who are not aware, that information officer is none other than the federal chairperson, Helen Zille. And proof of that PIA application will be provided, because yesterday at the DA's press conference, when a colleague, Khosi Mayepa, indicated that John Steenhuisen, the DA leader, denied having received a similar PIA application, or that he had not submitted it 4 weeks ago, because today in Tshwane is the deadline by which Helen Zille needs to respond. So that application was submitted yesterday. And the reason that I'm mentioning this, Premier, is for the following, because we sent a letter. You see, it's difficult to keep track, Speak, on who actually leads the DA, because when one Albert Fritz was still the leader, we sent a letter to him asking to give us all the cadre, so-called cadre deployment records. And he did not provide that. He didn't even respond. And then the Honourable Simmers, who then was acting, he was in this House given a similar letter. And up until today, he has never responded. Now, in this Honourable Member, and Premier, I'm raising this point, Speaker, because the Premier's department, as he has just said, has a responsibility.
Order members.
Honourable Speaker, can the Honourable Leader of the Opposition please speak to, yes, to relevant Speaker?
I'm listening very carefully, and the Honourable Dagmo is expanding on dignity as referred to by the Premier in his address to the House. So I'm listening very carefully. Honourable Member Dagmo, please just note that you must bring it back to the budget.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm saying so not only because of dignity, Speaker, but because of the fact that the Department of the Premier, as we all know, has a transversal responsibility for the appointment of public servants. And if you're a public servant and you have a particular qualification and you get denied that appointment because the DA somewhere in some corner has decided who should get that job. And, you know, when we initially raised this issue, Helen Zille, the Supreme Leader, indicated that it was all Musi Maimani's fault in terms of the so-called deployment, because he introduced it and now it has stopped. But I would like to bring to the attention of the Premier and ask that he responds to this the following, that there is a chief director who was appointed to the department that is headed by Honourable Simmers. And it's important for the Premier to tell us, when was this position of Chief Director actually advertised? When did the department actually hold the interviews? And who were the shortlisted candidates? Because the reality is that this is another classic case of DA cadre deployment. And the Premier's department has the Chief Director that was then appointed in the place of Jackie Sampson is someone called Camilla August. Now, when you go through a process like that, no, your MEC sitting there, you're supposed to, as a
Order members, Honorable Dugmore, please speak to me.
Okay, through you. So what we are having in this department is the collapse of the project management office, terminating contracts, including the managers of this component. And this is bad for governance. It's bad for what the Premier has said that his particular government has achieved. Because here you have somewhere else, as opposed to a proper system of filling public service appointments, someone being appointed in an unprocedural way. In fact, a DA deployment. Now, last week, Speaker, the annual World Happiness Report was released. And this is a report which indicates the happiness of people within their countries across the globe. And reading the report, it's clear that we need to commend our President, Ramaphosa, and his administration, given that South Africa has moved from being number 106 in 2019 to number 83 this year. So despite the negativity from the provincial government and those desperate, and we know they're going to fail from keeping the ANC winning an overall above 50% majority on the 29th of May, despite all the negativity, South Africans are in fact happier than today than they were 5 years ago. It's just a pity that this World Happiness Index does not zoom into provinces, because we are almost certain that the majority of the people of this province are not happier than they were 5 years ago. They are not happy because this provincial government, like this budget, does not make all of our people happy. And this is a budget for the few. It is a budget for the few because this department in particular gives scant regard to representativity. And if you're trying to build inclusivity and a feeling of well-being, every citizen in this province should feel they have a fair chance of being represented in the administration. But the very department that the Premier leads, Speaker, is the most unrepresentative department of the people of this province, with only 2 out of 65 senior directors who are African. And although the colored population in this province makes up 48%, they are underrepresented in this particular department. So well-being and inclusivity also means feeling that you have a stake in this provincial government. And when we asked in the annual performance plan, which is another reason why we are not supporting this budget, why the plan does not make clear its proposals to address this lack of representativity, all the Premier said in response, I agree. But he didn't actually address the issues. In fact, I'll tell you what the Premier does not agree with. He doesn't agree with the importance of addressing the injustices of the past as espoused by our constitution and our laws to promulgate employment equity. It's not surprising that the Premier's party has voted against the public procurement bill, which attempts to do that, against the expropriation bill, which attempts to do that. And that is why the eyes of the people of this province have opened, and they no longer believe the spin of this Premier, because in reality, ownership of assets, of land and housing in the historically disadvantaged communities in this province under his leadership as the Premier is completely out of sync with the actual population of our province. But in fact, it was his Director General, to his credit, who he said that he doesn't agree with the fact that the employment equity stats are as they are and that they are unacceptable. So the DG said that it's not acceptable, but the Premier does not agree that the facts and figures, especially in senior management, does not reflect the demographics of this province. He simply doesn't see it as an issue, as a problem. And this is where he's missing how that insults the dignity of capable public servants from all groups, white, African, colored, Indian, women and men. That is actually an insult to their dignity. And the reality is there is no plan, because the DG referred to the figures and description of employment equity in the annual performance plan, but unfortunately neither the DG nor obviously the Premier could then from the APP point out that this is in fact the department's
Honorable
plan.
Dagmore, please conclude. Your time has expired.
So the reality is that this particular premier has presided over a province which has excluded the hopes and aspirations of the majority.
Thank you very
in the
much,
West.
Honorable Dagmore. I now recognize the Honorable Kasim. Honorable Kasim is on the virtual platform.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the mission of the Premier's office was to lead a capable Western Cape government and to make sure that each and every department under its watch performs when it comes to service delivery. But this particular DA Premier, Speaker, has been failing on that together with all members of its provincial executive. When he introduced the safety plan, Speaker, it was meant to tackle crime and to drastically reduce murder rates in the province. However, despite millions of taxpayers' monies having gone to waste to date, crime in the province remains the same with the failure and of the so-called safety plan. Since the beginning of the Premier's term, Speaker, the South African National Crime Statistics Quarterly Report also shows that crime in the province has since become worse from one term to another. If this Premier is to make an honest self-reflection regarding his term, which is
Honorable Kasim, we have lost you.
Sorry, it's my signal. Let me just continue. If the Premier is to make an honest self-reflection regarding his term, which is coming to an end, then he would admit, Speaker, that his administration has failed to deal with crime. His interdepartmental whole society approach in dealing with crime in this province was nothing but a shame. And Speaker, on the 29th of May 2024, the people of this province must vote out this DA so that the province can be led by those who will make it safe. Speaker, it makes no sense for a provincial government to watch from a distance as gangs demands housing tenders by force, using violence and continuing to extort money from businesses in this province. Under this Premier's term, we had members of his executive who lied about qualifications, which is a crime under this National Qualification Framework Amendment Act, and the office of the Premier could not pick that up, Speaker. Another member of his executive was also internally investigated and found guilty of sexual misconduct against junior staff in his department. All of this took place under the Premier's watch and during his term. So all of this, Speaker, points that crime is active within the DA, and that is why they are unable to fight it within their own ranks in government and in this province at large. Speaker, every department under this Premier's watch has been failing. Even the infrastructure department remains with a housing backlog which never reduces. The Department of Education is failing when it comes to learner placement, and the provincial matric passing rate, whether we like it or not, produced poor results during this 5-year term compared to other provinces. The number of homeless people, Speaker, continues to grow, and instead the Department of Social Development shelters for these people. The provincial government, together with the city of Cape Town, are always running to court to obtain evictions orders against them. So in conclusion, Speaker, the office has been nothing but a failure, and therefore we reject this budget.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kasim. I recognize the Honorable Fry.
Honorable Speaker, in that cult movie Pulp Fiction, it was Pitt, who was ably played by Samuel L. Jackson, to come up with that wonderful line in all of movie history, "Allow me to retort." As we begin this budget speech debate today, let us take a moment to frame the question before us. South Africa is facing an unprecedented economic and fiscal crisis. The country has recently avoided a technical recession, but only barely. And while every economic indicator we have points to serious trouble, the Gini coefficient on a national level has remained stubbornly high at 0.676, which is the highest in the world. Youth unemployment now stands at 44.3% in Q4 2023 in relation to Q4 2022, which is also the highest in the world. And I would challenge Member Dugmore to go ask those people who are unemployed if they are happy. One of the bedrocks of any economy is a stable, reliable electricity supply. And this has been non-existent. What is it, we ask ourselves? Load shedding has plagued South Africa for over 15 years and has increased in its severity, reaching stage 6 on many an occasion. including directly after the President's State of the Nation address, during which he reassured us that we had turned the corner on the energy crisis. Speaker, 2023 alone saw 300 days of power cuts. Our country is sick, and it's not getting better. Things in the Western Cape are, as always, better, but we face the same strong headwinds that blow down from the incompetent and ineffective ANC national government in Tshwane. In-year budget cuts have meant that crucial service delivery is under serious threat. Many departments have had to make sacrifices to ensure that basic services continue. And as we all know, the Western Cape government has been forced to declare an intergovernmental dispute to recover the 1.1 billion rand from the National Treasury that is rightfully theirs. When facing the doom and gloom that dominates the short and medium outlook in this country, we cannot give in to despondency. We refuse to give up. But the question that must be asked of us is, what can we do?
Order,
The
members.
answer is, we must lead the way. Here in the Western Cape, there's at least still hope. This is
Order.
what the 150,000 people every year migrate to our province for. This is why 66% of all jobs created during this term were created in the Western Cape. This is why we reacted to the devastating floods faster than any other province by repairing the damaged infrastructure as quickly as was humanly possible. This is why more classrooms are being built at a faster rate than ever before. And this is why we are making progress in halving the murder rate. And to the citizens of the Western Cape, this is all done to create that hope for you. We in the DA will not rest until we have created the quality of life that you deserve in the Western Cape and across South Africa. Honourable Speaker, I would like to focus on a few aspects in which we can lead the way. The first and most notable way in which this government is leading the way is the Western Cape government's response to the energy crisis. This government is leading the way by making 103.5 million rand in this financial year available to address it. This government is taking the strides to do this by implementing demand-side management program, focusing on communication campaigns, saving electricity, using energy-efficient products and services. By distributed 96,000 emergency load shedding packs to the indigent, as the Premier alluded to in his speech, focusing on matriculants and the elderly, with total spending totaling 67 million rand in this current financial year. Implementing municipal pool buying, again as alluded to by the Premier, which allows municipalities to combine their buying capabilities in procuring renewable energy. Comprehensively estimating the energy demand in the Western Cape by developing an integrated resource plan, which will better allow government to create the long-term solutions to end load shedding for good. And finally, pulling together teams of experts and field leaders to supercharge our approach to the crisis and make sure our resources go the distance towards resolving load shedding. Despite the fact that it is not this government's mandate to do so, we see this government and this department taking the initiative in making the hard choices which will put this province out of the energy crisis. Honourable Speaker, already we hear of towns like Riversdale, which are in the early stages of a load-shedding-free future as a result of this department's efforts. I am confident that when we welcome Premier Windy back for his next term, he will continue the sterling progress. Another way in which this government is leading the way is through the continued rollout of internet access and e-innovation facilities. With the increase in population of the Western Cape, there's an ever-increasing need for greater access to the internet, digitization, and data governance. Many of the 150,000 people that have migrated to this province in the past year have shifted their work behavior to remote working. This has placed a greater emphasis on data security and governance. There is also an increasing emphasis on accessing the government's e-services. As stated in last year's budget, a new public-facing platform was developed, and this will be rolled out in the coming financial year. However, this vital part of the customer experience, as well as the citizen-centric culture of this government, is now under threat due to the in-year budget cuts and is now subject to the availability of funds. Mr. Speaker, as previously alluded to, Every strategy of this government must be supported by excellent data quality. Thus, this department will place a greater emphasis on the few interventions to provide proper support to all departments. Among others, these interventions include the Centre has rolled out over 2,000 high-speed broadband connectivity sites in the interim. 1,600 of these sites offering a public Wi-Fi hotspot, affording every citizen 6 gigabytes of free data per device per month. The current broadband servicing contract, under which these connectivity sites are governed, expires on 1 October 2024. The upgrade to this agreement, commonly called Broadband 2.0, was initiated via the relevant channels on March 31, 2023. 526.979 million rand has been allocated to this project in this financial year in order to finalize the procurement process with a combined total of 1.5 billion rand over the MTF. This clearly demonstrates that even in these exceedingly difficult times, this government remains proactive in pushing its digitization vision of, and I quote, a Western Cape where every citizen in every town and village has access to a modern, robust, and affordable high-speed broadband environment that connects government, citizens, and the economy to improve productivity and access to new markets. To further future-proof the Western Cape government's connectivity structure, there will be a policy guideline and a roadmap developed for the use of artificial intelligence technology. Honourable Speaker, one final way in which we are leading the way is the continued support for the Office of the Commissioner for Children. 20.3 million rand will be allocated to this office over the MTF so that the voices of the children of the province continue to be heard and their rights upheld. Honourable Speaker, in these troubled times, coherent vision and ethical leadership is sorely needed and vital to navigating us out of this myriad of crises. This government has shown itself competent in leading the way in showing the rest of the country that there is hope and a better future in which everyone has the opportunity to shine. So, as we move towards these elections, let's do a national government that cares for all its citizens and is competent to lead the country into better times across all aspects of society. Let's do a national government that listens to its people and acts to improve living standards. Let's do a national government that is accountable to its people and that politicians fear the citizens and not the other way around. Let's do a national government that conducts itself with integrity at all times and at all its levels. Let's do a national government that conducts its business, both external and internal, with respect. Let's do a national government that is responsive to any event with speed and empathy. Most of all, Honourable Speaker, let's do a national government that does the right thing. Let's do a government at the national level that acts like this government does at the provincial level. It is only then that South Africa will live out the true meaning of its creed in achieving quality, human rights and freedoms for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Fry. I now recognize the Honourable Premier, Premier Wendy.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to all of the members who took part.
Honourable Premier, please take a seat. Honourable Dagmore, what's your point of order?
Speaker, I would just like to ask whether, when considering the published list of speakers, there was a time of 33 minutes allocated to Member Fry, and he, I think, used less than half of that.
Honourable Dagmar, that is not a point of order. Honourable members, that is not a point of order, and I would like to remind the Honourable Dagmar, after 5 years, that during a debate, the speaking time and names can be changed. So there's no need for the 33 minutes. It could have been adjusted. Honourable order members, I'm not going to get into a rules workshop now at the end of term. Honourable Premier, you may continue.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a pathetic point, not a point of order. Thank you very much to the members that took part in this debate. First of all, to the chairman of the committee, Member Fry, thank you very much for your inputs in this debate. But also thank you very much for the role that you played in chairing the committee over the term. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the way in which you've conducted the processes, the oversight. I really do appreciate it. Of course, calling us to account when necessary, and really I do appreciate that. I also want to say to the Honourable Kasim, thank you very much for your inputs. I've only got two things to say in reply. The first one is that your coalition partner, the ANC, is actually at a national level the party that is responsible through the Constitution for policing. You need to understand that. I know that this is getting towards the end of the term for you, but you do need to understand that. I also need to point you to data, because you need to have a look at the data. Take the safety plan, and you can criticize and you must hold us accountable to various issues in the safety plan, but you must also look at the data. So 5 years ago, when the safety plan started to be developed, 4 years ago, when the safety plan started to be implemented with boots on the ground, LEAP officers in partnership with the city, and those hotspot areas that the safety plan focused on, the data shows that that's the only place in South Africa where there has been a decline in the murder rate. You must use data in these debates. You can obviously play politics around it, but you must use the data. So you must first of all understand the context of the Constitution, and then you must use data. Otherwise, you are not adding to the debate. I also want to draw your attention to another area where you are in coalition with the ANC, because you must also understand that as an opposition party, when you come to talk and debate at these levels, you must also remember that you're a party of government, and you're a party of government in this province, in the municipality of Knysna. And quite frankly, your governing record there is absolutely atrocious. You can't deliver water to the citizens. You can't manage sewage systems for the citizens. You can't remove their waste. You can't get the basics right, let alone the financial management. You've run out of money in probably one of the towns in this municipality, in this province, that should be able to pay its way, that does have the ability to bring in sufficient rates and taxes in order to make sure that you narrow the Gini coefficient, you make a real difference. I'm going to talk to you just now, Honourable Dagmore, that you make a real difference where you are governing, and you're obviously failing, you and your coalition partner called the ANC. I now want to move to the Honourable Dagmore.
Order, members.
To the Honourable Dagmore, thank you very much for your inputs. I would like to comment as follows. And probably most of your speech that you gave today was probably the speech that you wrote for yesterday, because you were not, or you didn't really talk about the budget at all. And this is a budget debate. But Speaker, if you'll allow me, I'll reply to the questions as answered, because they don't, as I've said, apply to the budget. But I will reply to the questions as put in this debate. First of all, dignity, where the Honourable started. And he spoke about, what happens on Human Rights Days. Well, I can speak for myself, because I know where I was. I was speaking to ambulance personnel who go out and really give those who have lesser ability, really talking to about changing people's rights in this province. I spoke to the ambulance people, to the systems. I went to the health processes and spoke to our frontline services. I engaged with our firefighters. I engaged with our emergency personnel. I didn't have a big, at taxpayers' expense, eat, meet and greet function, as we see time and time again when any of these holidays come about. And wait for the 27th of April. You're going to see millions spent by the ANC as an election campaign and not really dealing with the issues that our citizens face. Because when it comes to human rights in our country, the ANC are seriously failing the citizens of this country. If you think about safety and 27,000 murders or people being murdered in this country, where are those human rights? The ANC misses that boat absolutely. Energy. I mean, if electricity is seen as a right, wow, has the ANC not failed the citizens of this country? Every year gets worse and worse and worse. And of course, last year, the worst in 16 years of load shedding. If I think about healthcare, education, water supply, I mean, you just name it, SASSA. The ANC can't even get a basic SASSA payment to the most vulnerable citizens of our country. They cannot do any of those things well at all. The only thing they can do is on a human rights day, take millions and millions and millions of rands worth of taxpayers' money and hold a big function, food and partying, and they don't get anything right other than that. That is shocking, and that cannot be a track record that I would be provided. Yeah, that's an ongoing program. They keep on stealing the people's money, an absolute ongoing problem that the ANC
Order,
has.
members.
And that's probably the most important reason as to why they should be voted out of power. Now let's get to his comment was the Premier promised to produce a vaccine. Well, first of all, that is a lie. I did not promise to produce a vaccine, but what I did do,
Order, members. Order, Premier, Premier, please take your seat.
On the
Honourable,
point of order, Honourable Speaker, the Premier ought to come with a substantive motion because he's accusing the Honourable Member Dugmore of lying. So he needs to produce a substantive motion in order to substantiate on that claim. He cannot just say the member is lying.
thank you, Honourable Deputy Chief Whip. Honourable members, order members, order members. Honourable members, you had an opportunity to be on the speakers list. You had your inputs, you made your inputs, and now the Premier is responding to those inputs. If you do not like what you hear, then that you can take that outside of this chamber. But can I please ask that in the interest of the decorum of this House and the respect to one another as honourable members, that you allow the Premier to make his submission and this running commentary to please be at a minimal. We only on the first order of the day. Honourable Premier, my apologies, please continue.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So I did not say that we would produce a vaccine, but what I did say is that we would procure one. Because at that time, we were in the second wave of this pandemic, and the ANC again had failed the citizens of this province. Countries were delivering vaccines to their citizens across the world, except in South Africa. The ANC again had failed in getting the basics right. They failed so many times, the citizens of this country. But at that stage, they were totally failing. We were moving into a budget time, and I had said and made the public comment that if the ANC could not provide vaccines, what we would do in this province is we would get it right. We would provide those vaccines. And so we started a process of, number one, going through a budget process to add it to our budget so that we could put money aside for procurement. This was in the beginning stages of January 2021, in the second wave of this pandemic. And of course, at that stage, because the ANC had failed so dismally in procuring these vaccines, we started to put the budget together, but I already started calling myself companies around the world. And I would like the Honourable Member Dugmore to just perhaps engage with some of his ANC colleagues at the national level who at that time were trying the same thing and failing. And if you remember the dollars that we were paid eventually for vaccines, and one wonders how much went into backhanders and friends of the ANC in that process, because we were looking at between $10 and $12 a vaccine. We didn't have a budget in the Western Cape at that stage because we still had to go through the budget process, which we're doing right now. So what I did was Zweli Mkhize, if you remember Zweli Mkhize, he was the health minister at that time before some complications came in his normal ANC colleagues involved in all sorts of other programs of benefiting family members, etc. But he was the minister at that stage. And I will read from the WhatsApp, because at that stage, I was already getting vaccines available for us, but I didn't have the budget yet. So instead of just waiting until the province could procure them, I straight away sent the vaccines that I could get to Dr. Anban and to the minister. His message back to me was, "Hi, Premier, sorry I can't take your call. I'm in a meeting. Thank you very much for the information. Dr. Anban has already briefed me about the 1 million doses that you can get at $3 and the 20 million more doses that you're able to get." Now, this is before the ANC could procure any doses. I was already getting them at $3. We couldn't procure them for this province. So what did I do? I phoned the National Health Department and I phoned the National Minister and said, I can get them way cheaper than you are advocating at the moment. Here they are. I made them available. Well, it just died there and then, because of course, when we did manage to get, we got them at $10 and $12 a pop. Why? Typical of the ANC procurement processes, there has to be slots cut in for their friends and family. That is the problem with the ANC. That is the problem with the ANC. So there's the real issue around vaccines. The second issue around vaccines, because the ANC was failing so dismally, nothing in the procurement supply chains, in anybody that I spoke to around the world. So when we made the announcement, guess what happened? Suddenly the ANC wake up and say, oh, well, we maybe better start getting on the bus here. And that was the key requirement here. That's called politics. When you say, if you can't deliver, we will deliver, and suddenly they woke up to the fact, although South Africans had to pay 3 times more when it came to the pricing. So, Dugmore, you must please speak to your ANC colleagues, except perhaps they don't speak to you at all. Then the next point that you raised, Honourable Dugmore, is one about electricity. Now, he raises the questions in the standing committee.
Order.
He then says, I didn't give him the answer, but I'll give him the answer, and you can go and listen to the recordings and look at the minutes. I said there are 2,000 megawatts in the pipeline right now. They will be delivered between 18 and 24 months, because they are all different programs in different municipalities at different speeds. When? Between 18 and 24 months is the delivery time of those tenders. The second thing I said to him, Honourable Speaker, on pricing, was that they are coming in at cents per kilowatt hour and not at rands, which Eskom, because he keeps on saying that Eskom is going to deliver better prices than the new processors are going to deliver and the private sector are going to deliver. They are never going to be better. Eskom, first of all, can't deliver energy, even at the price that they're delivering at the moment. And the increases that they are giving every year and projected for the next 5 years will be double-digit every single year. There'll be no doubt about that. And of course, procurement with the private sector, with a multitude of suppliers at cents per kilowatt hour and not rands per kilowatt hour. Electricity in the Western Cape will be far cheaper than in any other province in South Africa. Then, he then goes on to talk about Agulhas and the 623 Rand 61, which is the surcharge of power coming in to the system. Now, I want to say to the citizens of this country, of this province, and to the mayor of that municipality, I've already engaged with him, that I do not believe we should be charging a cent, not the 623 Rand 61. So what was that? I did the deal. So what we should do?
Honourable Dugmore and Honourable Premier,
we reverse it?
can I please remind you guys not to have a dialogue? Honourable Premier, can you please speak to
What
me?
he's saying is we should reverse it. But I've already engaged because I don't think we should be charging that surcharge. In actual fact, we should be enabling it. We should be incentivizing even more. But I, Honourable Dugmore's argument, and I think it is right, and I will engage with that DA municipality. As long as the Honorable Dagmore engages with his ANC municipalities who actually charge more than Agulhas for the same thing. So 623 Rand 61 is what Agulhas charges. In Knysna, the ANC and the EFF run Knysna, there it is 682 Rand 69. And in Beto, which the ANC runs, along with other coalition partners, it is now even more. It's 770 Rand and 59 cents. There, have a look at that. So the Dugmore comes here with a little piece of sliver, which I agree should not be charged, but he comes here and he doesn't even know that his own municipality is charged
Order.
way in excess of.
Order. Honorable Premier, please take your seat. Honorable members. Honorable members on my left-hand side. If you wanted to be on the speakers list to make inputs, you could have been on the speakers list. That is now the opportunity for the Premier to respond to inputs already made in this debate. Honorable members, I'm going to ask you to please work with me. We're only on the first order of the day. We have a long day ahead of us. And please allow the person on the floor to have an opportunity to make his or her submission. Honorable Mvimi, is that a point of order on my comments?
I just want to find out if is the Premier willing to.
Please take a seat. I will ask the Premier if the Premier is not prepared to take a question. Honorable Premier, please continue.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, then the Honourable Dugmore goes on to talk about the Public Procurement Bill and BEE and all of these pieces of legislation that are all part of ANC policy. Now, we know that in actual fact, those policy frameworks are the exact policy frameworks that has taken the country to the space that we're in now. The public procurement policies are exactly those programs and processes that has enabled the ANC to steal as much money as possible, billions and billions. The Jobs for Powers programs has exactly what the ANC has been doing. The legislation that they write within their policies does just that. Enabling theft, enabling jobs for pals. It is just exactly what the problem is with South Africa. Just read the Zondo Commission and you will see that's how policy is affected. And what has the ANC done about it? They all go, don't worry, we've done the Zondo Commission. No one is in jail. They need to sort out their own members because it's their own members that has enabled this horrendous environment that our country finds itself in. Then I want to say the Honourable Dugmore comes here and starts to raise and put staff members' names on the platform here. When he comes here with information, he has got no background or backing for that information. It's unacceptable, actually, how he uses this space. But he comes in to talk about the filling of a vacancy. So let me tell the Honourable Dugmore, the position for this vacancy became vacant on the 1st of January 2020. The post was advertised on November 22nd, 2019, with a closing date of 17 December 2019. Of course, if the DG is going to end his term, you re-advertise for the job. I mean, that's exactly again to my previous point. They know no idea about how processes work because what happens, it normally goes to the internal cadre deployment team inside Lutuli House. They don't go through processes like this. The ANC, and that is the problem with the ANC. The problem with the ANC is they don't understand proper due process. So let me say again, he says no process was followed, some cadre deployment issue, I don't know, but this is the process. I'll give it again. The position became vacant on the 1st of January 2020. Mr. ANC members, that means a contract is coming to the end. Second, no, I do need to explain it because you don't understand it.
Order.
The post was advertised. He said it wasn't. The post was advertised on the 22nd of November 2019 with a closing date of the 17th of December 2019. The post was advertised. Now listen to this. The post was advertised in the Western Cape Government's SMS vacancy bulletin, the DPSA's public service vacancy circular, DPSA, not a provincial, a national DPSA public service vacancy circular and national newspapers. The post was also advertised on Indeed, Talent.com, Glassdoor, LinkedIn Limited Listings, Adzuna, Jubal, and Google Jobs. He says it wasn't advertised. Then 108 applications were received. See the table below. Then candidate 1, master's degree in housing development and management. Candidate 2, doctorate degree in town and regional planning. Candidate 3, BSc engineering, civil honors and masters of business and administration. And so we can go on. BA honors, candidate 4, development studies. And so we can go on. Then, Mr. Speaker, interviews were held on the 21st of January 2020. See also table above. Then the official was appointed effective 1 March 2020. The following served as a motivation for the appointment as set out in the nomination approval submission. The candidate is currently, this is before she was appointed, not some catered deployment from somewhere else. The candidate is currently employed at the Department of Human Settlements as a director of affordable housing. The incumbent is responsible for the management and coordination of Affordable Housing Directorate, which incorporates the Rental Housing and Gap Housing Directorate. So the honourable member must not come here, cast aspersions, use this platform for a lot of rubbish, absolute rubbish. And let me end, Mr. Speaker. Then the Honourable Dugmore has the audacity to come here and speak about happiness indexes.
Order.
Do you know that when it comes to happiness and measurements of happiness, just think about measuring happiness in South Africa when you've got no energy, when SASSA can't pay you, when you don't have a job and poverty is getting worse, the Gini coefficient is getting worse, because that's what happens under ANC rule and under ANC government. It doesn't happen in this province, but it happens in their provinces and it happens nationally. Countries that actually have a better rating on a happiness index than South Africa are Venezuela at 79, Colombia at 78, Bolivia at 73, and Russia at 72. And guess where we are? Under ANC rule, 83. Unacceptable. This ANC is not about happiness. This ANC, Mr. Speaker, is about absolute misery in this country. They have brought this country to its knees.
Order.
And guess what, Mr. Speaker? On the 29th of April, on the 29th of May, this country can make a decision on whether we want to be the sadness
Order.
of the ANC or bring in the happiness of the DAR. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier, honourable members. Order. Order, members. The debate is done.
Premier is
Honourable
quiet on
Mvimbi.
DA deployment. Cadre
Honourable
deployment.
Mvimbi. Can I please ask that the IT, I don't know which member was raising interjection. Honourable Nkondlo, no interjections are allowed. If you participate on the hybrid sitting, I would like to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of this debate. I'm going to suspend the House now for 5 minutes to allow the guest of Minister Meyer to take their seats. The House is suspended. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the second order for the day.
Debate on Vote 11, Department of Agriculture, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Minister of Agriculture, Minister Mayor.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable members of the Provincial Cabinet, Honorable leaders of the official opposition in their absentia, members of this esteemed House, special guests, the media, the members of the public, thank you for joining us here today. Honorable Speaker, today I rise to table the Western Cape Department of Agriculture's 2024-2025 appropriation budget of R1 billion. Honorable Speaker, when I arrived at the legislature this morning, I was met by the Western Cape Agri Worker of the Year, Vivian Jacobs, as member of the Western Cape Prestige Agri Workers. I welcome Vivian to the House today, and may you please stand. Vivian, thank you for being here. He is the Agri Worker of the Year, won the competition, traveled to the Netherlands, to Rotterdam, visited the agri value chain. He also visited the biggest fruit logistica festival in Berlin, in Germany. We are proud that a farm worker is now a leader on the farm. Thank you for joining us today. Honorable Speaker, Anne-Marie Verwey, also fondly known as Sister Anne or Mummy, is my special guest today in this House. Thank you for joining us here today, all the way from Maritzburg. My wife and I, together with Jackie Pandaram, traveled all the way to Maritzburg, and thank you for that lovely meal that you made for us during our visit. It was delicious, and we are very proud that you can now represent die Groot Karoo in hierdie klein parlement. So dankie dat u vandag hier is. Sister Anne has been involved in voluntary community activities in Maritzburg for more than 23 years. In 2023, she received the Gold Award for the Western Cape Service Excellence Award in the category Best Citizen Individual. Achtbare Speaker, die dame met die hoed het 'n nasionale ambassadeur geword toe sy in Februarie verlede maand in 2024 'n aanbieding by Landbou Weekblad gedoen het oor oplossings vir Suid-Afrika se platteland konferensie. Ek is dankbaar, Jackie. Ek is dankbaar, Daryl Jacobs en Dr. Bugale, dat ons ook vandag vir Tannie Anne vandag in hierdie huis het. Dankie Tannie Anne dat jy 'n verskil gemaak het en dat jy vereer word vandag. En ek voel geëer dat u my uitnodiging aanvaar het om vandag my spesiale gas in hierdie huis te wees. Honorable Speaker, when I took up the position and the Premier appointed me 5 years ago, I immediately set up 5 ministerial priorities, each with a clear goal and a measurable outcome. Today, I want to give feedback to this House about my performance, the performance of the department, the performance of the stakeholders in agriculture in the Western Cape. Honorable Speaker, in the Western Cape, agriculture has thrived on the edge of chaos. Chaos primarily being championed by the ANC national government. What makes this achievement remarkable, Honorable Speaker, is that agriculture has thrived despite the failures of the national government. Failures that impacted directly on the growth and the job opportunities of the agricultural sector. Honorable Speaker, the most pressing failures, according to AgBus, this is the Agribusiness Confidence Index, were the following: intensified delays and the inefficiencies in the port. We have spoken at length in this House about the state of the harbors, rising crime in South Africa, the poor rail and infrastructure, rising protectionism internationally, again in key export markets, increased geopolitical uncertainty. There's war in Europe, in Ukraine, there's war in the Middle East. And so there's increased geopolitical uncertainty. In fact, I want to thank the Premier again, talking about geopolitical uncertainty. He gave me a book to read, Rescue from Global Crisis to a Better World. The geopolitics is part of the world's efforts to rescue the world from this global geopolitical crisis. But we've also seen the impact of load shedding on agriculture. Honorable Speaker, I now turn this part of my speech to my priorities. Number one, structure, education, training, and research. Over the last 5 years, the Western Cape Department of Agriculture has provided agricultural education and training to 2,248 registered students since 2019, when I was appointed. We've offered short skills courses to 17,000 beneficiaries since I was appointed. Approved financial support to 539 qualifying students. We've introduced, and thank you to the colleagues, Daryl Jacobs and the team, we have introduced a new diploma in agriculture. We have obtained accreditation for the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations for qualifications such as livestock, farmer supervisor, orchard, and vineyard foreman. There has been a 77.4% increase in the number of schools that have expanded their curriculum to include at least one agricultural subject. Agbare Speaker, u weet dat ek in hierdie huis geveg het vir meer landbouskole en meer landbouvakke in bestaande skole. Ek is dankbaar vir die Wes-Kaapse Departement van Onderwys wat my gehelp het sodat ons meer landbouvakke en meer landbouskole hier in die Wes-Kaap kan vestig. Honorable Speaker, our aim, our research aims to grow the agricultural sector and create more jobs. Central to that growth is the quality of the scientific support our producers, as highlighted by one project, for example, our bull project, making genetical superior bulls available to smallholder farms to bolster the quality of the herds. Tannie Ann, ons gee vir die klein boere hierdie bulle sodat hulle 'n nuwe hoë kwaliteit genetiese materiaal kan vestig. Hulle gee dit vir ons gee dit vir hulle vir R100 vir 'n bepaalde tydmerk. Ons stuur ons veeartse daarheen. Ons kyk na dit sodat hulle genetiese kwaliteit kan verbeter, sodat hulle beter produkte het vir die uitvoermark, vir die abattoirs daar geslag word. Na 3 jaar kom die bul weer terug. Die veeartse ondersoek dit, bekyk dit, doen navorsing, uitstekende werk wat gedoen word. Only in the Western Cape.
Honourable Minister, before you continue, can I please remind you not to engage the members of the gallery and speak to me, please?
I apologize, Honourable Speaker.
You can speak through me to the members, but not directly.
And I may not speak directly to you. I must only speak through the Speaker to you. That's our rules in this House. I will honor the rules of this House. Honourable Speaker, we had also the 17th annual ostrich auction. We bolstered the ostrich industry with superior genetic material. And again, through the Speaker, Tannie Ann, hierdie volstruise moet die beste genetiese materiaal hê, sodat die volstruise vleis en die kwaliteit van 'n hoë standaard is, sodat wanneer Dr. Ilse Troutman en Bongeswa dit wil uitvoer, dan is dit top genetiese kwaliteit materiaal. Well, we also have a 7th round of funding for the alternative crops, allocated 1.9 million to 9 research projects. We also, as members of this House will know, people ask, what about cannabis? Well, we have done research into cannabis, not for, but for medicinal reasons. And because some of the members is on the higher side of the house, the cannabis can help you to calm you down. And so we have done some fantastic, outstanding research on the cannabis industry. We have developed a plan, and I want to thank Dr. Ilse Trautmann and the team, because now we have a thing called a CAN plan, because there is a place for that. We've also have the flyover project, which I will return later. Honorable Speaker, my second priority is farmer support. Honorable Speaker, the past 5 years have not been easy for our producers, our exporters, our farmers, and I'm so happy to also see Wendy Peterson in the audience here today. Despite this, agriculture is, however, thriving on the edge of chaos. My heart bleeds for farmers when they see the floods, when they see the fires, when they see the situation at the ports, at the harbor, electricity. My heart is bleeding. Farmers get no support. And so what we've done here in this province, as promised at the beginning of my term, we have increased the gross value add of primary agricultural production by an average of 3% over the past 4 years. This is against the background of COVID-19, the floods, the energy crisis, and the failing infrastructure, mainly the rail and particularly the harbors. We supported the extension of commercial primary agricultural sector, both black and white, to ensure regional food security and to increase our export earnings. Honorable Speaker, the department's food security initiatives continue to make the difference in the lives of the vulnerable households. Thank you to our project manager, company, Casidra, for your work in this regard. I'm particularly happy to see the Chief Executive Officer of Casidra here. Where is he now? Thank you, Dr. Du Plessis, for outstanding work in Casidra. I will later return to your exceptional leadership that you've displayed during this term. But Honorable Speaker, I'm excited about that the youth are taking the issue of food security in our communities. One such example is the Feed the Culture Community Garden based at the premises of Sibungile Day and Night Center in Khayelitsha. They are standing right there at the back. I have visited them. Please remain standing. Your work needs to be recorded in this chamber. The unwavering determination through you, Speaker, accompanied by the infrastructure development and support from the department, propelled them towards sustainable vegetable production. Honorable Speaker, allow me then to welcome Feed the Culture Community Garden, Antazo, Bisa, Ululeka, Sisusa, Mantla, Pomela. They had only one rake and a spade and a passion for agriculture. They have taken that up and they fought poverty and insecurity in their community. And I want to thank them for outstanding leadership, because when I visited them in Khayelitsha with our extension officers, I saw something magical together with my staff and Dr. Mukhali. Thank you for your outstanding leadership in food security in your community. You may be seated. Honorable Speaker, another recipient of the support of the Western Cape government is Caroline Charles, all the way from Beaufort West, who is a proud gardener of Auntie Care's Home Food Garden. Achtbare Speaker, en Caroline Charles, sy is met ons vandag in haar eie woorde. Ek haal aan, sy praat in die huis. Wanneer jy 'n groentetuin het, het jy kos en jy is ook in staat om selfs die armes te voed, unquote. Baie dankie vir jou teenwoordigheid vandag, Caroline Charles. Beaufort West gaan nooit weer dieselfde wees nie. Baie dankie. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the Western Cape government has supported 170 black commercial farmers and conducted and provided advisory services to 20,349 visits to farmers to provide advisory services. Speaker, this is extraordinary because we had COVID-19, people were scared to travel, and here we visited 20,000 visits to farmers during this period. Honorable Speaker, one of the recipients of our support is the Akkedis Workers Trust. They are the owners of Akkedis Boerdery Pty Limited, represented here today by Christel Moses and Mariette Moos. I recently visited them in the Overberg region. I want them to please stand. Fantastic, outstanding. They are acquired 20 hectares of land. 16 of those hectares under irrigation. They have made their own wine. Today, 10 years later, they are the proud owners of an award-winning Southern Treasures Pinot Tarts. And I know my friend loves Pinot Tarts, and I recommend the Pinot Tarts of that people. Whenever you visit that area, Pinot Tarts is the name of the game. Thank you, Christelle and Mariette, for joining us here today. They won gold in a short space of time for Pinot Tarts. It's exceptional. It is remarkable. But I want another man to stand who's sitting next to them. Ennis, an outstanding public servant for the last 40 years. This man is still working, still want to work, and must work because he supported them all the way. Thank you, Ennis, for bringing them to this parliament here today. Honorable Speaker, our research has proven that for land reform to be successful, the project must have access to land and tenure and security, capital, passion, hardworking beneficiaries, mentors, access to markets and product input and that investment. This is confirmed with a recent independent external evaluation which the Western Cape government has done. We have done a research, and our research has demonstrated that 83% success rate of representative samples of land reform business funded and supported by the department. 83% success of the sample that was selected. Honorable Speaker, last week I joined our partners from Partnership for Agricultural Land Solutions, also known as PELS, in Aurora, in Pakketberg, in the West Coast. With innovative funding from Nedbank, recipients of the Pele Agri, Simon Mabete, and his son Romeo Mabete were able to receive a title deed that the Premier was talking about to almost 1,500 hectares of prime agricultural land. This was made possible through a willingness of a farmer, Gerrit van der Merwe, and his son Arno van der Merwe, supported by an excellent facilitation by PELS, by Lennox, and by Gerrit van der Merwe to embrace the role that farmers can play in transforming the agricultural sector. Facilitated by the teams at PELS, the project brings together 2 generations of Van der Merwes and 2 generations of Mabetes committed to embrace the future and growing together. Achtbare Speaker, my derde prioriteit is landelike veiligheid. Dit is in lyn met die Wes-Kaap se regering se fokus om die Wes-Kaap 'n veilige plek te maak. Achtbare Speaker, die Wes-Kaap het hard gewerk om 'n provinsiale landelike veiligheidsplan te implementeer wat vereis dat die regering vennootskappe met die Suid-Afrikaanse Polisiediens het, die buurtwagte, die plaasbuurtwagte, die private sektor en enige ander struktuur wat 'n bydrae kan maak. Ek plaas op rekord met dank en waardering aan ons adjunkt-direkteur-generaal meneer Darryl Jacobs vir die groot bydrae wat hy en sy span en Jackie Pandaram daar gelewer het. Ons plaaswerkers en eienaars moet in staat wees om besigheid te doen en om die nasie te voed en om 'n ekonomie hupstoot te gee sonder om bekommerd te wees dat hulle deur misdadigers geteken gaan word. Ons vennootskappe met landelike gemeenskappe en die 450 geregistreerde plaas- en buurtwagte speel 'n kritieke rol in die verbeelding van ons droom om ons landelike gemeenskappe meer veilig te maak. Honorable Speaker, with the support of my colleague, Minister Regan Allen, I will continue to forge ahead with plans to ensure that agri-workers, farmers, and producers and rural communities are the backbone of our rural economy, that they must be safe. Honorable Speaker, my fourth priority was market access. Honorable Speaker, as highlighted by my colleague, the Minister of Economic Opportunities, Minister Wegner, when she tabled the 2023 the Provincial Economic Review and Outlook, she indicated that the agricultural sector, this sector, grew by 37% over the last 10 years. Remarkable, exceptional. Since 2018, agriculture and agri-processing exports increased from 63 billion rand to 104 billion rand in 2023, which is an annual average growth of 11%. With 0.1% economic growth, with 1% economic growth, 11% economic growth over a period is truly remarkable. And I thank our exporters, I thank our farmers, I thank our agri-workers, and I thank all the people in the industry and the value chain. I also want to thank you, Wendy, because under your leadership, the exports of wine also increased. And so during this period, we have seen the relative share of the Western Cape agri-processing exports on our African continent from 35% grow to 37%. Obviously, I want more of that to happen, and particularly already in contact with my department about West Africa and East Africa, in particular Kenya. The relative share of both primary agriculture and agri-processing in the Americas has increased from 6 to 9% and 7 to 10% respectively during the same period. The relative share of the Western Cape primary agricultural exports to Asia has grown from 31% to 35%. People in Asia must drink a little bit more wine than in through the speaker. Maar nie daai wat so hard skoppie, net daai ligte kies. Honorable Speaker, Jacob Jam Company is a family-owned husband and wife startup greenfields jam processing with the support of this department, Western Cape. Jacob Jam has been able to demonstrate remarkable business growth. They both resigned from their jobs, took the risk, brought the passion, brought the experience, food science, technology, and marketing skills to this business. Had many hiccups, but had one thing: determination. Presently, they are listed at Checkers, Shoprite, Pick n Pay, and Spar, all made possible by the ongoing support of the Department of Agriculture. Nigel and Christian Jacobs, the co-owners, are with us today, and I want to welcome them. They are from Ceres. Ceres, as you know, Cape Winelands, the biggest soft fruit industry. But when I listened to this story this morning, they told me we are all over the supermarkets in the Western Cape. But they told me this morning, I want to be all over South Africa. And after that, they told me, I want to be all over the world. And so Bongiswa and Dr. Troutman, their work is cut out to support Nigel and the team from Jacob Jam. Honorable members, on your desk, you have received a special gift, Jacob's Jam And members, this is a special day to use this jab, not every day. On your birthday, special holidays, and maybe Easter around the corner. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you for blessing us with this. Honorable Speaker, our veterinary services play a key role in export facilitation. Over the last 5 years, our Veterinary Export Certification Office issued 36,657 export permits. You can't just grab the meat and export. You need a permit. But we don't want you to come to the office. Honorable members, anybody from there that wants to export, maybe to the Bahamas, they want to export, and I'm happy that we have the Honorary Consul General of Bahamas, Mr. Werner, can you please stand? He's also here. I want to welcome him. If we want to export, our office has issued 36,657 export facilities or certificates, thereby facilitating exports to the value of 1.5 billion. Obviously, my desire is to go to 2 billion. Last year, we presented a very successful inaugural Provincial Veterinary Week, which I launched and which had a strong focus on biosecurity. Speaker, agriculture is thriving at the edge of chaos. Honorable Speaker, the fifth ministerial priority is climate change. Honorable Speaker, aerial mapping of agricultural commodity production and infrastructure in the Western Cape provide accurate data, crop yields, production trends, which is crucial for forecast and understanding market dynamics. This government think before we act, but we need data, you need research, and you need evidence. And in this regard, the flyover project, which is unique in the Western Cape, gives insight into the impact of microclimate and regional crop changes on the crop's suitability and traditional growing areas. Eugene Dupree of SIQ, Speaker, is today in the House, a company that did the actual flying over all the farms in the Western Cape. He joined us today, and I'm particularly thankful, and thank you, Eugene Dupree, and your team for strengthening the Western Cape evidence-based, data-led governance and an approach that support us to take decisions that we can back up with research. The budget is tight, so when we fight for money with the colleagues, they say, show me the data. Thanks to you, I now have the data to approach the Budget Policy Council of this government. Through your data, I can now table a budget of 1 billion rand. And thank you for flying myself and Dr. Mogale over the farms so that we could see how the actual data capturing is taking place. I thank you, and you may be seated. Honorable Speaker, during this period under the review, the Western Cape Department contributed to the sustainability and the development of agriculture by rehabilitating 142,000 hectares of agricultural land and 2,919 hectares of cultivated land under the conservation agriculture practices. When you speak to Dr. Troutman, she will just tell you about conservation agriculture. We created 5,794 green jobs. We've rendered 5,195 technical services through land care. Thank you, Aisha, to mitigate the impacts of climate change and enhance resilience. We co-hosted the International Symposium on irrigation for horticultural crops with the University of Stellenbosch. Honorable Speaker, we've signed a memorandum of understanding between the Department of Agriculture, my colleague, Minister Bradell, Environmental Affairs, and the School of Climate Studies with the University of Stellenbosch to further give impetus into the national and international collaboration. Honorable Speaker, in 2022, Karen Ross, the Secretary for the California Department of Food and Agriculture. I signed a memorandum of understanding to promote cooperation in agriculture. I'm thankful the Premier was present when we signed a virtual agreement. Secretary Ross was in California, in Sacramento. I was here in Cape Town. We had a virtual signature ceremony. Thank you, Premier, for joining us during 2022. Today, I now can report that officials from the Western Cape Department and the California Department of Agriculture had engaged 13 other Mediterranean regions and concluded a Mediterranean action partnership. I want to thank Dr. Ilse Trautmann that represented me on the 4th of December in Dubai at COP28. We now have a Mediterranean global partnership. There are 5 Mediterranean regions in the world. Western Cape is one, California is one, is 40% of the world. And I want to thank Dr. Dirk Trotsky and Daniel Johnson, who accompanied me, and Aisha Peterson, also later to California. And so I am proud of the work of the cooperation that we have with Mediterranean region. Honorable Speaker, earlier this year, in line with the Western Cape government's commitment to respond proactively to the impact of climate change, we hosted recently the first Interministerial Committee on Climate Change. And on the 8th of March, we had the climate change in Indaba with international speakers. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, thank you for joining us. I always feel safe in your presence. Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, agriculture is thriving through all the chaos in South Africa. In fact, members will know we had 4 floods last year, major floods that caused major damages. But through that chaos, agriculture was thriving. Honorable Speaker, there are ambitious investment plans underway for the expansion of the Cape Winelands Airport and the development of the infrastructure and the intermodal transport hub with aspirations to connect all rail, road, sea, and air in the future. I'm excited about the potential for the development of that place to become an agri-corridor. Honorable Speaker, I now welcome in this House Deirdre Davids of the Cape Winelands Airport to the House. I visited the place. I was inspired by the work they are doing. There is even a railway line directly from the Cape Winelands Airport straight to the port of Cape Town. Thank you for your exceptional leadership. Thank you for bringing the technical knowledge of the Cape Town International Airport to the new Cape Winelands Airport. I am pleased that the Cape Winelands Airport is placed in that area because that is going to be changing the mobility. And I see the Minister of Mobility, he will have to take note of the great development. I will speak to you. I want you to also convey my thanks and appreciation through the Deputy Speaker to Mr. Dion Luther, the former General Manager of the Cape Town International Airport. His experience, his knowledge, his depth of aviation, but his depth of the whole industry will greatly be benefited the Cape Winelands Airport. As Deirdre Davids herself comes from the Cape Town International, we need to visit farms. There's a lot of farmers that we need to meet. We have 17,000 farmers. We need to meet them in their physical space. And therefore, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I now allocate 35.4 million rand for this particular services. Also, for food security, 16.7 million, 57.8 million I now allocate to provide for animal health services to prevent and control animal diseases. I want to thank Honorable Dr. Troutman, because we are now working with the concept of one health, animal health and human health. Because if you eat the wrong stuff, you end up in hospital. And for that reason, we are responsible to make sure that all the meat and veterinary products are safe at our abattoirs, in the shopping centers, at the DCs, the distribution centers. And so that's the money that we will allocate for that, for veterinary services. But it's important to do research. Agriculture is a science, and the science needs the research. So 97.8 million is to improve agricultural production through research, focusing also on the mitigation and adaptation options for farmers in response to climate change. Honorable Speaker, climate change is real. It's here. Last month, the world has seen the hottest, deur die agbare speaker, Tannie N, verlede maand het die wêreld die hoogste temperatuur gesien in Februarie maand sedert die industriële revolusie. Dit is die impak van klimaatsverandering. En daarom neem hierdie regering dit nou met alle erns. Also, 30.5 million are now allocated to provide production economics and marketing services to agribusinesses. 48.2 million towards education, training, and agriculture skills development. We have the oldest agricultural training college dating back to 1898. And so that college, and thank you to the previous interim head, Mr. Darrell Jacobs, because that is an important institution. But Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, we've also refurbished the Provincial Veterinary Lab. It will be open on the 1st of April, and it has also received an accreditation, SANA's accreditation. Honorable Speaker, I will now also open the 39th World Veterinary Association Congress that will take place in Cape Town, in the Western Cape, from the 16th till the 19th of April this year. Honorable Speaker, over the last 5 years, agriculture has thrived on the edge of chaos, and we will continue to thrive. Agriculture, as I conclude, is ready to continue its mission of growing the economy, creating jobs. Honorable Speaker, it gives me therefore great pleasure to table today in this House the Western Cape Department of Agriculture's budget of 1.018 billion for deliberation, discussion, and adoption in this House. Honorable Deputy Speaker, this is a budget to invest in agriculture and to grow the economy of the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Minister. I now recognise the Honourable Moran.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, Premier, members of this Parliament, boyfriends, and guests, also the officials. Let me greet you. And I'm glad that the audience are here, that you've invited MEC. You said this is not only a budget to be tabled for the department, but also to do an assessment of the department's performance. Let's start at the beginning. In 2019, let me remind you again, a farmer in Stellenbosch was killed for the surname of Smith. Gathered a team, you set up a rural safety desk, you dispatched 1 million for each district to deal with rural safety. And I remind you about a boy that was killed in Klava by a farmer. That rural desk, safety desk, and money that you have dispatched would not save that boy. Last month, on the 4th of February, a young worker was killed on a farm in the Dorings by security guards appointed by a farmer. 2 security guards were arrested. They were denied bail. Why? One, they are foreigners. Secondly, they don't have the necessary documents to be in the country, nor do they have the necessary documents to be employed. And we are nothing. We are nothing. We are nothing about that particular issues. So when we speak about the safety, rural safety of farmers, it also includes farm workers. And I'm glad that farm workers are here today. This leader sitting on the opposite, and he's the most senior leader in the DA in this house, forms policy for the DA. And he then said that the agricultural sector have growth with more than 37%. But in his policy, in his manifesto, they are suggesting that farm workers should be paid a minimum wage, which is equal to the old age pension grant. What a shame. In their manifesto, they suggested that the labor laws to be relaxed for workers to be fired easily by their bosses. This is what they are standing for. So when we speak about the agriculture sector, it seems the farm worker is not important. We spoke about Vivian. And I hope Vivian, who was a agri worker winner, got a farm. I hope so. Because it is of no use to win accolades, sponsored a trip overseas, and when you are coming back, you remain a poor farm worker. Spoke about land reform. Land reform. You spoke about wherever you are involved, your success rate is 83%. And then you compare with projects in the Western Cape where national government are involved. Why is there a distinction? Why are you not supporting all those farmers? The report that you are referring to, Ulasani report, says that you must support all farmers and not certain. Why is there a distinction between the two? And then you come here and you claim 83% success rate. Land reform, we spoke about land reform and how the National Department and the officials stole money and they stole land. Here, on the opposite side, is one of your members from Stellenbosch. The DA municipality is taking him to court because they are calling him a land thief. Your own municipality, Stellenbosch municipality.
Honorable Maran, please take your seat. Honorable members, there's a order, members. Order. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
Yes, Chair, I rise in terms
What
of
is your
Rule
point of
59.
order?
Chair, I'm rising in terms of Rule 59. If the member wants to reflect upon a member of this House, they know they need to bring a substantive motion. A substantive motion has not been brought.
Thank you very much. Honorable Maran, can I please, I completely agree with the Deputy Chief Whip. Please do not cast aspersions on any member. And if you have any substantive issue that you want to draw the attention of the House to, can you please follow the rule in terms of Rule 56 of our standing rules? Honorable Maran, please continue.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me apologize on behalf of Stellenbosch municipality for calling that member a land thief. You see, Speaker, you spoke about all the nice things in agriculture and how they are thriving. I brought to this member, sitting on the opposite side, full flay in Gouda, water that's been cut, electricity that's been cut, and he promised that he will visit. We were there a few weeks ago. No one was there. No one. Not a single one. Maybe it's because of farm workers. Again, speak about rural safety and the transportation of farm workers. Accident in 2020, those of farm workers that's been killed. And last year, December month, 3 farm workers were killed, transported like animals. MEC released a statement saying that it will appoint a team to investigate the cause of that particular accident. 4 months later, there's nothing from this MEC. Deputy Speaker, the previous week, South Africa celebrates Human Rights Day. A look at the time when the majority of people in South Africa had no basic rights and were actively oppressed by the previous regime, apartheid regime. South Africa's Human Rights Day is a national day historically linked to the Scalpel massacre of 21 March 1960, when police fired at peaceful crowd that had gathered to protect racist past law that prohibited freedom of movement and prevent the majority of people of South Africa from living with dignity. It is commemorated each year in order to remind South Africans of the sacrifices that came with achieving democracy. As a result of that commemoration, the country has an opportunity to reflect on the progress made in protection and promotion of human rights. Speaker, this day is not only historical significance. As mentioned, this day is also a day of reflection on current challenges and progress thereon. The existence of constitutionality and trans rights creates the possibility for those rights to be enforced and offers a legal basis for a continuous project of societal transformation, progressively turning promises into reality. Speaker, a majority of people in the Western Cape will continue to live in conditions of abject poverty, and the human rights remain theoretical than real. The DA uses the language of social policy and justice, but drives a very corporate and unequal agenda. The contrast between the
Honorable
rhetoric.
Maran, I've been listening very carefully. Can I please just remind you that we're busy with the budget votes? So can you please draw your contribution back to the actual vote?
Thanks, Speaker. I'm getting there. Speaker, the majority of Western Cape people continue to live in conditions of abject poverty, and the human rights remain a more theoretical than real. The DA uses the language of social policy and justice, but drives a very corporate and unequal agenda. And so their budgets. Premier claimed that 74% of the budget of this Western Cape government goes to poor communities. If you go to those poor areas, it tells a different story. The contrast between the rhetoric and social policy and the reality of corporate-driven inequality under the DA's governance cannot be ignored. While the party speaks of justice and inequality, the majority of the Western Cape residents languish in poverty, with the human rights remaining elusive in practice. One of those fundamental rights that our forebears sought and fought for our return of the land to be shared by those who work it. And you don't hear in this budget that the MEC have presented that they tell us that there's a certain portion for land reform. And when you will hear that the MEC, the Premier, and even officials said that, but land reform is not our responsibility, and therefore we cannot budget for. When we entered this parliament, this Premier said that we're not going to wait for national government. At that particular time, there was a delay in lifting the walls of the Brandfly Dam. Premier, you've budgeted 20 million rand. 2019, when we enter, you budgeted 20 million rand. Right? You withdraw the 20 million rand.
Honorable Premier and Honorable Maran, can I please ask
The Premier
not
will,
to get into a dialogue?
the
And
Premier
Honorable Maran,
withdraw.
please speak to me in order for me to protect you.
The Premier withdraw the 20 million rand because you have suddenly a previous MEC of Agriculture that did not know that water is a national responsibility. That Premier. Because before his term of Premier, he was the MEC of Agriculture. He withdrew the 20 million because you have suddenly realized that water is a national responsibility.
Order.
William Dam, 4.2 billion rand has been budgeted. They have started that particular project, and 70% of that water will go to black farms. 70% of that water. Now, if we are
Order.
claiming,
Ma'am, order. Honorable Maran, please take your seat. Can I please ask honorable members on my left and right hand side, there's a member on the floor. Please allow the honorable Maran to make his contribution. Honorable Premier, you had your opportunity earlier on. Can I please ask that you do not drown out the speaker on both sides? Honorable Maran, can I please also remind you to speak to me?
Speaker, if we could have budgeted 20 million rand for water, if we could have spent R1 billion for police, that's not our responsibility. Why can't we budget for land reform? Why can't we say in our budget, every agri worker winner got a farm or a piece of land? We don't have any excuse not to look after those who are outstanding in agriculture, workers who are performing. Why is it that we can't budget for them? Speaker, it cannot be that this sector make 48.8 billion for the provincial economy, for the impact of lying predominantly in the rural areas. The majority of people living on farms are below 35 years of age and have no form of ownership or inheritance from their parents' property. These young people are used only for labor, and when they reach a particular age, they will be thrown out because their services will not be needed. No budget even to assist those farm workers of not get evicted. Nothing, because an eviction starts with a labor issue. Because courts these days, the only thing that they are looking is there an employment contract between the worker and the owner? And if there's none, gonna get evicted. And these Premier and these MEC don't budget to assist those. In conclusion, Speaker, the discourse of the allocation and utilization of resources within the agricultural sector of the Western Cape has shed light on critical issues affecting our communities. Despite commendable efforts such as educational programs and jobs placement initiatives, there remains a glaring disparity between the rhetoric of empowerment and the reality of continued marginalization, particularly amongst black farmers and farm workers. Now, yesterday, the MEC, when he spoke about Beaufort West and those two farmers, where the National Department wanted to throw them off. I brought to you, MEC, a matter of Swellendam, where the municipality at that stage tried to evict black farmers, livestock farmers, from communal land. In a couple of years later, they've successfully been evicted. Why? Because you remain silent. You only raise your voice, MEC, through your speaker, when it comes to certain issues, when national government is involved. When it comes to where your party is governing, through the speaker to your MEC, where your party is governing, you remain mum, saying nothing. Allow those black farmers to be evicted. I brought it under your attention. Why should it be, Speaker, that should be brought to this house if you got an open door policy? Speaker, lastly, the refusal to grant access to resources such as farmland perpetuates a cycle of economic dependency and limits opportunities for through ownership and autonomy. There's two farms under your ownership, Premier, as the Western Cape government, Vikerel and Amalienstein. Now you claim that your commodity approach is the best in the country. Why is it then that you fail over and over and over again when it comes to Vikerel and Amalienstein? Two communities of that particular area, Duiselsdorp and Zoa, have been promised those farms. And up till now, they are not benefiting from that farm. Has it become a milking cow? Is the question that we should ask. Furthermore, the lack of transparency surrounding the farm evictions underscore the urgent need for comprehensive data collection and proactive measures to protect the rights and livelihoods of vulnerable rural communities. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very
Speaker,
much.
Also,
Thank you.
the ANC does not support this budget.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maran. Order members. Order members, the next member is Honorable Kasim on the virtual platform. Honorable Kasim. Kasim.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is sad that more than 1 billion is allocated to the Department of Agriculture in the Western Cape, while agriculture is one of the most unequal sectors in the province, which is dominated by white people to the disadvantage of all other racial groups. This department, Speaker, under the instruction of the DA, continues to use taxpayers' money to assist white farmers to become richer, as agriculture in the Western Cape has a massive red tape and is molded in such a way that African and colored populations remains limited. Speaker, at the heart of denying the black population access to the agricultural land in the province lies the issue of land. And as long as African and colored people in this province are denied access to suitable farming land, then inequality, poverty, and starvation will continue amongst these previously disadvantaged groups. This department has the means to acquire land and lease it specifically to emerging black farmers, since the department always hide under the fact that its land redistribution lies with the national government and that the power does not have powers to delegate to the province. But Speaker, when we raise the issue of poverty, unemployment and food security amongst the poor, we are always told about how the province runs an effective food garden scheme where they assist communities to plant spinach in the back of their yards. Speaker, the sad part is when it comes to black people, the issue of agriculture is raised, we are always told about backyard food gardens. But when it comes to white people, Speaker, we are told that the department spent millions of rands providing water, machinery, fertilizers to farmers, among others, in order to farm and produce exports so they can become millionaires and create employment. Speaker, when the department speaks about employment within the agricultural sector in the Western Cape, it is basically speaking about those part-time opportunities afforded to seasonal workers who gets paid below the minimum wage and are often subjected to the abuse by white farm owners. The issue of telling black people to concentrate on food garden, Speaker, and then take taxpayers' money to spend it on already white farmers, rich white farmers, is the reason why inequality, poverty, unemployment, and food insecurity will never cease to exist in this province. In conclusion, Speaker, it can very well be true that the province does not have land redistribution powers, but there are other mechanisms that can be used to assist black people to enter into the agricultural sector. The department can easily use its own budget, Speaker, to acquire parcels of agricultural land owned by itself and national government in the province, as well as buying land that is held in private ownership and then make it available to black emerging farmers in the province, Speaker. It is not true that the provincial government cannot engage in this task, and therefore we reject this bill. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kasim. Honorable members, the next speaker is Honorable Little. I wish to remind members that this will be the Honorable member's maiden speech, and as parliamentary convention, no interjection at all will be allowed. Honorable Little, I recognize you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that. I hope I get extra time as well. I thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for this opportunity. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate all those that are in the House for the achievement, because it is a rare opportunity to see people achieve. So we would like to congratulate those. However, one must look at the situation that we are faced with in this province, that 1% of the agriculture land in the Western Cape is in black hands. The rest, unfortunately, is in white hands. And we see the inequalities in the budget that we have in front of us. And one must always follow the money, because the money will tell you the truth as into how it is achieved and what it is that we must achieve. I've heard about that this house or this province is not responsible for land restitution or not handing over farms, but many of these farms are in municipal land hands. And this province actually has control over those municipalities. Why have we not seen the transfer of those farms into black hands? Because if we were serious about the security of food, if we are serious about making a change in this province, we would have seen that transfer and to bring things into a restored a situation within this province. However, nothing in this budget addresses these inequalities. The same can be said about the lack of budget allocated in recognition, enabling and promoting women. So let me show you how my statement is justified. If we look on page 1551, we will see that 154 million is allocated to administration. That means that that money is allocated to the MEC's office and under his control. However, education and training is only 58 million. So the seriousness about bringing about change is the minister's office, Mr. Speaker. And so we would ask...
Honourable Little, can I please ask you to conclude? Your time has expired.
It is so unfair, Speaker, but I will accept it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Without going into the detail, it's proportionally allocated based on the election results and the amount of seats that you occupy in the House. I now recognize the Honourable Van der Westhuizen.
Honourable Speaker, honourable members, the proposed budget for the Department of Agriculture is again an example of a budget that, on face value, seems to represent an increase in real terms. But due to the salary increases in the public sector, it is indeed not the case. And again, we have an example of a department that must do more with the same amount of money, or in this case, less than in previous years. The budget is 1,018.5 million rand, a sizable budget, but it has not grown in line with inflation and the demands that have been put on the department. The minister referred in more detail towards the figures in the budget. I do not want to repeat those. The single biggest amount amongst the various programs of the department is for the support and development of agricultural producers, or in everyday language, support to our farmers, both established farmers, but particularly also new and emerging farmers. And it will come as no surprise that it's our emerging farmers that rely most on the advice and other means of support organized by the department's extension officers. Again, this department is doing its best to close the gap and to bring emerging farmers as quickly as possible to full commercial status. And again, while the budget is not broken down into the time spent with established and emerging farmers, I assure you that the emerging farmers are getting the lion's share of this support. Whenever we at the Standing Committee on Agriculture met with first-generation farmers, they expressed their gratitude for the immense support that they received from the staff of the Department of Agriculture. It is of great importance to all of us that our various agricultural sectors remain competitive. And when I say competitive, I mean internationally competitive, and that we make the most of what we have. Competition in agriculture drives prices down and allows people to then eat healthier and live healthier lives. And we, unfortunately, cannot deny that so many South Africans still live with incomes below the breadline, or that 27% of children in this country are stunted and fail to develop normally due to malnutrition, which again just underscores how important agriculture is. Fortunately, South African farmers are highly productive and mostly able to compete with other countries' farmers. And remember that many, if not most, first world countries subsidize their farmers to remain on their farms and to be internationally competitive. The fact that South African farmers across various sectors remain internationally competitive is not due to our national department, but I want to say it's despite the challenges or hurdles that the South African national government is putting into farmers' way to succeed. We really need to take our hats off to our agricultural sector. I'm going to mention just 9 of these hurdles and increasing threats to agriculture in South Africa. The first one, and the MEC also referred to this, is load shedding. We've seen severe and intensifying load shedding, and our electricity prices have increased considerably over the last few years. Increases much higher than the inflation rate and making the cost of producing food higher. Criminality is the second one that I want to mention. And I find it ironic when opposition speakers blame the Western Cape for our safety plan, etc., when it should have been the responsibility of the National Department, of the South African Police Services, to ensure that farmers and their workers are all safe. Criminality is on the rise, and farmers need to spend increasing amounts on security and on doing the work that the South African Police Service is supposed to do. And the Honourable Maran just referred to the private security guards in the Dorings, which transgressed the law. Again, they should not have been there. These services should not have been needed. It's the National Department of Home Affairs that should be checking on work permits, and it's the National Department of Labour and Employment that should go around and also inspect the sheets, the wage sheets of those employers. Again, it's the National Department. How ironic that the opposition then come and complain that the Western Cape is not doing good enough. We're not picking up the failures of the national government. May I also just remind you, our ANC colleagues, that they were warned when the commando system was scrapped some 20 years ago, that criminality would increase. We were promised that it would be replaced by sector policing, which was supposed to be a more effective system. We were another set of false promises that were sold to us. En dit is dikwels die nuwe boer, die ontluikende boer, wie se planne die meeste in die wiele gery word, wanneer sy pompe se kragkabels gesteel word. 'n Kommersiële boer met eiendomsreg op sy plaas kan dan na 'n bank toe gaan en gaan geld leen en sê ek het dringend nodig om my pompe weer aan die gang te kry om my bome nat te lê. Maar 'n boer wat deur grondhervorming op 'n stuk grond geplaas is waarvan hy nie die eiendomsreg mag kry nie, het nie daardie ruimte om na 'n bank toe kan gaan om die skades, 'n gebreekte pomp, 'n gesteelde kragkabel of ander 'n trekker wat gesteel is, om dit te kan vervang en geld daarvoor te gaan leen nie. Hulle is in 'n veel slegter posisie as wat hulle sou wees onder DA-beleid. The ANC government changed the staff learner ratio for schools, and they no longer distinguish between rural and urban schools. So many of our rural schools had to cut back on their curricula, more so in other provinces, but also so in the Western Cape. So now farmers have got this added expense of transporting their children to schools far away, when for many, many decades they were able to have their children put in a school hostel much closer in that well-run rural school. A fourth hurdle that farmers now need to cope with is the fact that on many train lines, many railway lines, trains are no longer running, and our roads are deteriorating as a result of this. In the past, many smaller towns were serviced by goods trains, transporting agricultural produce to markets and buyers. Yet, we all know how the railways have been mismanaged and how that service disappeared on many railway lines. And farmers had to switch to road transport for almost all their transport needs. And in many provinces in South Africa, the roads have become marked with potholes, causing damages to vehicles as well as to their sensitive freight. I can also refer to the closing of post offices, mostly in rural towns. We know how many have closed down already. And over the weekend, it was reported that another 235 post offices have been earmarked to close. And again, It's mostly our smaller rural towns that suffer in where post office staff are now being retrenched. Again, poorly managed by the national government. I can refer to the congested and poorly managed ports, and it has already been referred to in this debate. We all know about the challenges in our ports, how fresh agricultural produce are sitting in our harbors, waiting to be loaded onto ships. But due to the ANC's procurement policy and general mismanagement, repair and maintenance contracts are given to companies that are ill-equipped to keep enormous investment in infrastructure going. And while it may be true that the sensitive fruit and vegetables may not be rotting in Cape Town, it's a different story once it's on the sea and when these products arrive late at their destinations. Colleagues, may I remind you of the importance of water infrastructure and water in itself for agricultural production. And the Honourable Maran has just admitted that this is actually a national competency. The work on the Clan William Dam to increase its capacity by a factor of 2.4 times is the responsibility of this National Department of Water and Sanitation. That project has been launched 3 times, and I would not be surprised if it gets launched a 4th time before the elections. This project was supposed to be completed by 2015-16. We are now promised that it would be complete by 2029, some 14 years late. And as the Honourable Maran has said, 70% of the additional water licenses, water rights that will become available have been promised to emerging farmers, which means that for 14 unnecessary years, emerging farmers have been denied the right to farm with water from that dam. Again, a failure from the national government. We have visited the biggest land claim in the Western Cape, that of the community of Ibn Yezer. They are at the far end of the canal system, bringing water to places such as Vredendal. That canal should also be the responsibility of the National Department of Water, but who is giving money every year for the upkeep of that canal to restore infrastructure that actually should have been replaced many years ago? It's again the Western Cape government, because we know how important it is. The community of Ibn Yezer have the land, but they need more water desperately. Again, it's the national government that is standing in the way of unlocking the vast potential of the land of the Ibn Yezer community. Speaker, I want to also refer to climate change. And I will be expanding somewhat on the challenges brought about by climate change in the later debate on the Department of Environmental Affairs. But we all know that the ANC government is extremely slow to replace our old, inefficient and damaging fleet of coal-powered power stations with clean, renewable sources of energy. Again, it's the general public, and particularly farmers and industrialists, that invest in rooftop solar installations. I'm the first to admit that we still do not know the full extent of rising ocean temperatures on our climates. But what we do know is that this will lead to more extreme weather conditions, and these will hit us more regularly. And farmers are unable to insure themselves against floods causing erosion, damage to farm roads, and the closure of other roads that cut them off from their markets. It's predicted that some areas may suffer from more regular occurrence of droughts, while others may see an increase in tropical storms. There are many more risks that farmers face, but the last one that I would like to draw your attention to are the threats of expropriation, particularly its effect on farmland. The latest attempts to push through the Expropriation Amendment Bill, with its clause containing nil compensation, does very little to instill confidence in South Africa as a place to invest. There are numerous examples of other countries where agricultural land was taken without compensation. And in all these cases, agricultural output has dropped to the detriment of those countries' economies. And you can go and see for yourselves, and you don't need to go further than one of our neighboring states. It has been the poor that eventually suffered the most. It's been the poor that had to leave their country of origin in big numbers, looking for employment elsewhere. And there are many South Africans that feel that those foreigners are now taking the bread and the work opportunities from them. Colleagues, and particularly our ANC colleagues, these are only a few examples of the many stumbling blocks that your party have put in the way of our farmers. And remember, when farmers suffer, both workers and the poor that rely on healthy and fresh, affordable food suffer. And despite all of these, the South African agricultural sector has managed to grow and increase its production, not only in its production for domestic use, but as the Minister has referred to, especially also in exports. There is this saying of adapt or die, and our Department of Agriculture is making us proud in the way that they are able to adapt. With the challenges experienced by many of our national scientific and research entities in South Africa, the demands on this department's research and technical development division has increased tremendously. Yet due to budgetary constraints and other priority areas, the amount budgeted for this function, unfortunately, had to decrease. In monetary terms, a slight decrease, but in the light of salary increases and inflation, it's a marked decrease in real terms. The Western Cape has various climates within our borders. And while there is a greater diversity of farming sectors, and while the percentage contribution of livestock farming may have decreased, our veterinary services provide an increasing and unmissable service, whether in the form of advice or by studying the causes of death of animals, or providing vaccines, or by assisting with permits for the safe movement of animals and the export of meat. This program is providing essential services that are welcomed with open arms by livestock farmers. Agbare Speaker, ek het skams verwys na die getal skape in Suid-Afrika wat sedert 2010 stelselmatig afneem. Dit is vir my 'n bron van groot kommer en 'n duidelike bewys dat ons skaapboere swaar trek. As jy wonder waarom dit so is, verwys ek hier na die hindernisse wat ek vroeër uitgespel het. Die hindernisse wat die ANC-regering in boere se pad plaas. Tog is dit vir my opmerklik en 'n vreugde hoe dat die kleinskaalste boer met vee, veral beeste, oor die laaste jare uitgebrei het na areas wat tradisioneel gekenmerk was deur meer intensiewe boerdery, soos byvoorbeeld sigbaar in die gebied van die Kaapse Wynland munisipaliteit. Dis my verder verblydend om te sien hoe dat boere oorgeskakel het na nuwe sektore soos wildboerdery. En dit is besig om nog verder toe te neem. Onder andere in areas waar sekere boksoorte nooit van tevore voorgekom het nie. En voorzitter, Speaker, die boere sê vir my andermaal dat een van die redes waarom hulle oorskakel na wildboerdery is omdat die diefstal van skape eenvoudig hand oor hand toegeneem het. Weereens 'n faling aan die kant van die Suid-Afrikaanse polisie om boere en hulle troppe veilig te hou. Danksy inentings, behandelings teen parasiete en die siektes wat bosluise oordra, kan ons nou diere aanhou op plekke waar hulle jare gelede ook nooit gesien is nie. Dit is die taak van die program veeartsenykundige dienste om vinnig en doeltreffend op te tree in die gevalle van ernstige pandemies onder diere. En ek herinner u graag aan die herhalende voorkoms van Afrika perdesiekte, Afrika varkgriep, bek- en klauseer en om van die baie ernstige voëlgriep nie eers te praat nie. Hierdie program onder die departement lewer dus uitsluitlik baie noodsaaklike dienste. Die program vir landelike ontwikkeling is 'n program wat die verantwoordelikheid is van die nasionale regering. En dis vir my jammer dat die agbare Little, wat uiteraard nou nie die geleentheid gehad het om haar baie lank te kon voorberei nie, weer eens die Wes-Kaap blameer vir die ongelyke eienaarskap van plase. En ons erken dis 'n ongelyke eienaarskap. En ons wil graag hê die profiel van ons boere moet baie vinniger verander as wat tans die geval is. Maar vir haar om te sê 1% van plase is in die besit van wit mense en daarom is 99% van die grond in die Wes-Kaap 1% is in die hande van swart mense en 99% is daarom in die hande van wit mense. beteken dat sy nie die somme verstaan nie. En sy besef nie hoe baie plase is eerstens in die hande van maatskappye nie, en 'n maatskappy het nie kleur nie. Sy besef ook nie hoeveel van daardie grond is in die regering se besit nie. Al hierdie plase wat die regering tot nou toe gekoop het, om dan opkomende boere te gee, is in die regering se besit. En die regering, weet ek nou nie of die regering wil beskryf as 'n wit regering of 'n swart regering nie. My indruk is, die regering het ook nie kleur nie. So ek sal bly wees as u dalk so 'n bietjie meer sal gaan kyk na u somme in hierdie verband. Ongelukkig, wat sien ons? Die begroting van die nasionale regering vir grondhervorming word ook dramaties teruggesny. Mense sou dink dat die nasionale regering al meer en meer sou doen om opkomende boere te help. Maar wat doen hulle? Hulle onttrek hulle steun. En dit skep vir ons probleme en ironies dan word die Wes-Kaap daarvoor geblameer. As a former educator, I'm particularly proud of this department's initiatives to provide training, not only through Farmers' Days, but also full-time training, dedicated training, particularly to empower the youth. We are justifiably proud of the work done by the Elsenburg Training Institute, and an amount of 58.4 million has been budgeted for agricultural education and training. Now, let me just quickly turn to the speech of the Honourable Maran, who has really, again, blamed us for a number of mandates, which is actually the mandate of the national government. I've already referred to his complaint about the private security that has been transgressing the law, and that caused the death of a South African citizen. Again, as I've said, this is absolutely related to the failure of the South African police services. Then there's also his criticism about the unsafe conditions in which many farm workers are being transported. En dit is waar. Baie van ons plaasmense word nie in wat ek sou sê dignified voertuie vervoer nie. Baie van hulle word op oorlaaide voertuie vervoer. Maar ek het geskryf na aanleiding van hierdie komitee se studie in terme van die vervoer van plaaswerkers vir die nasionale minister van vervoer. Ons het vanuit die Wes-Kaap sekere voorstelle gemaak, soos onder andere spoedbeheer op voertuie wat mense agterop oop voertuie vervoer. Ek wag tot vandag toe vir 'n reaksie van die nasionale minister van vervoer. Dis die nasionale regering wat uiteindelik vervoerregulasies daar stel vir die vervoer van mense, vir die padwaardigheid van voertuie en so meer. Die agbare Maran wil graag dat die plase Waaikraal en Amalienstein, wat ekonomies nie op hierdie stadium vatbare plase is nie, dat hulle net so aan hulle plaaslike gemeenskappe oorhandig moet word. Wel, ek kan daar vir u verwys na byvoorbeeld Elandskloof, waar die agbare Maran onlangs gekom het om sy voertuig te gaan haal na 'n jaar daarso. Sy voertuig het net so verwaarloos soos die plaas waarop hy gestaan het. Want weer eens, dit is 'n plaas wat deur die nasionale regering eenvoudig vir 'n gemeenskap gegee is, en dit kan op die nasionale regering nie traag dat daardie plaas intussen tot 'n ruïne verval nie. Ek verwys hom graag na die plaas bekend as Proefplaas, ook net buitekant Citrusdal, wat die eiendom is van die nasionale regering. Eens 'n pragtige proefplaas met alle fasiliteite, alle infrastruktuur, met hoogs produktiewe sitrusbome daar. U moet tog, as jy op die N7 ry, kyk, wanneer jy op die linkerkant aan die ander kant van Citrusdal 'n plaas sien waarvan 'n klomp sitrusbome doodgegaan het. As jy wil sien waar die skure se deure afgesteel is, dit is die eiendom van die nasionale regering, wat hulle eenvoudig net, die Engelse woord abandon, hulle het dit net gelos en weggegaan, en uiteindelik is daardie mense wat daar bly gefrustreerd. Uiteindelik is hulle nie water vir die bome nie, uiteindelik het 'n produktiewe proefplaas verval tot 'n absolute ruïne. Dit is nou dieselfde agbare Maran wat vir die Wes-Kaap wil kom sê, maar as ons geld kan gee vir landelike veiligheid, dan moet ons ook geld gee vir grondhervorming. Ons kan nie alles wat die nasionale regering opmors in die Wes-Kaap regmaak nie. En as die agbare Maran vir ons so graag wil help dat ons moet inspring in die Wes-Kaap, help ons met goed soos die Western Cape Powers Bill. Help ons om ons hawens, ons treine en 'n klomp van ander infrastruktuur weer op dreef te bring. Ons kan dit beter bestuur as wat die nasionale regering dit doen, en ek dink ons track record, ons geskiedenis in hierdie verband is tog baie duidelik. Speaker, dit was my 'n besondere voorreg om die afgelope 5 jaar te kon dien as voorsitter van die staande komitee verantwoordelik vir oorsig oor hierdie departement van landbou. Die taak was aangenamer gemaak deur die uitstekende werk van die departement. In hierdie tyd uiters bekwaam gelei, eers deur met Joanne Isaacs en tans deur Dr. Mugali Sepopetsa. Baie dankie vir u en die amptenare se uitstekende werk. Baie dankie aan minister Meyer wat sy taak as politieke hoof van die departement van landbou met groot toewyding en entoesiasme, mag ek sê soms oorweldigende entoesiasme, aangepak het. En jy hoef maar net vanoggend hier buite die voorheen te gekyk het na die uitstalling van die departement se dienste om daardie entoesiasme aan te voel. Ek wil ook graag sê baie dankie vir die steun vir die lede van die staande komitee oor politieke grense heen. Hierdie lede se gewilligheid om oor lang afstande te reis om hulle toesigfunksie te vervul is regtig 'n riem onder die hart gewees. Speaker, die staande komitee vir landbou beveel daarom by die parlement aan dat u die begroting vir die departement landbou soos voorgelê heel hartig sal steun. Ek dank u.
Thank you very much. Baie dankie agbare van der Westhuizen. Honorable Minister, Minister Meyer.
Agbare Speaker, ek het op alles te reageer, nie, maar op slegs 'n paar sake wat ek dink uitklaring nodig het. The CFO has now reminded me to Honourable Member Little, firstly, welcome to this House, and we wish you a happy, productive stay in this House. This is the only functional provincial legislature in South Africa, and your contribution are welcome in this particular regard. I am happy that you are here. Just one correction, because my wife is in the House, and you mentioned now a budget that I have. You see here now tonight that I have this big budget. I'm under stress. So this budget that you spoke about, that I apparently have, the CFO corrected it. It is the budget for the office of the minister, and the minister has staff. He has vehicles, he has office, he has furniture. He has to pay the bills, the municipal internet, security, maintenance, at Dalsima, all is that under that budget. But program 2, Honourable Speaker, to Honourable Member Little, program 2 is a total of 154 million, and that's COE 92 million. That's not in the minister's office. There's also goods and services of 54 million, obviously not in the minister's office. There's a capital 3.5 million, obviously not in the minister's office. And there's transfers 4.9 million, obviously not in the minister's office. Because if these things are in my office, I have to go to that office rather soon. So it also includes corporate services, 61 million, and finance, 52 million. And I think that correction so that my wife is not putting me under pressure when she hears that I've got this big budget. So thank you for the opportunity to rectify it. But honourable members, the issue of agri workers that are...
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Maseko, is there a point of order?
No, Speaker. I just want
Why
to
are you raising you?
I just want to find out if the minister can take a question.
Thank you very much. Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Honourable Speaker, I normally don't do it, but since you asked me so nicely, I'm happy to take a question.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Maseko, the Minister is prepared to take a question. You can pose a question to the Minister.
I thank you, Speaker, and also thank the minister for taking the question as I asked nicely. Minister, Honourable Member Maran mentioned that you are the most senior member in the legislature, and rightfully so. Now, I want to find out, as a senior member in the province, will you avail yourself to take a position of the National Minister of Agriculture in the union buildings after elections? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. Order members. Order members. There was a question posed to the Minister. Minister, how you respond to that question, I will not dictate.
Speaker, I first have to consult my wife because I am married in community of property. But if my wife agrees tonight that I must take up my position as National Minister of Agriculture in the union buildings after the election, and if that's the wish of my members of my caucus, I will certainly consider it after consultation with my wife. And if that is certainly ready after the election, I'm looking forward to serve the farmers in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You may continue.
Honorable Speaker, there was also a reference to the situation of farms. Apparently, there's only 1% of the farms that is in white land. Hence, I think this is a parliament. Everything that is mentioned here are documented in the Hansard, and it becomes the official documents of this parliament. So if there's an untruth, it is my duty, my responsibility to uphold the Constitution and rectify the information that was not correct. So I will do that now. I want to inform this House that over the period from 1994 till 2024, this year, 10.2% of privately owned white land has been transferred in this province to black ownership in the Western Cape. So that's now in the record. No other half-truths can start 10.2%. Honorable.
Order.
No, we have the facts now.
Order members.
I told you I'll come
order
back.
Members.
I'm now back. I told you I'm coming back.
Honorable members. Order. Honorable Minister, please take your seat. Honorable Maran, you had an opportunity to make your submission and to contribute to the debate. I allowed you the opportunity to do so, and I protected you when there was interjections. Can I please caution you not to get into a dialogue with the minister? The minister is now responding to your input. If there's anything outside of this that you want to challenge, you may do so over a cup of coffee, but not in this house. Honorable Minister, please continue.
I said to the member at the time, I don't have that information. I will come back to the House, and today I am back and I give the factual information. To honorable member of the EFF, I don't know what to say, because the EFF really just wants to grab land and mess up the situation. Well, I think we know in terms of the Constitution, I took an oath of office. That member took an oath of office. Honorable member, through you, Speaker, Ms. Little, you took an oath of office. That oath said, I will speak the truth. I will honor the Constitution and all the laws. And in terms of this law, land reform is a responsibility of the national government. Once they allocate the land, we will provide post-settlement support, which we do. But the national government last year only gave 20 million rand for their budget to buy a farm. You can't buy a farm for 20 million. And you want to empower black people and are still the after. It doesn't work like this. But I think there's a solution. A new government is coming. I'm no more worried about that because a new government will sort this out. Achtbare Speaker, dankie aan achtbare Andrikus van der Westhuizen en sy komitee wat hy met waardigheid en uitnemendheid gedien het oor die afgelope 5 jaar. Dit was vir my 'n plesier om voor sy staande komitee rekenpligtig te wees. Hy het ook gereeld, in feite van die meeste DA studiegroepe, het hy gelei en hy was besonder nougeset. Hy het waarde toegevoeg in daardie rol. Ek gaan hom mis en ek wens hom sterkte toe met sy volgende hoofstuk op sy lewenspad. Ek het baie by hom geleer, groot waardigheid, 'n man met integriteit en 'n man wat ek altyd binne die parlement en buite die parlement sal ondersteun. Ek wil ook die lede van die amptelike oppositie wat op sy komitee gedien het bedank. Ons het nie altyd saamgestem soos wat jy nou kan sien. Ons het mekaar wederzijdse respek behandel. Ek wil in besonder ook vir agbare Pieter Maree, wat nie vandag hier is nie, van die Vryheidsfront, as ook agbare Pet Maran van die ANC bedank, so ook lede van ons komitee, want ek het ook iets by julle geleer, ondanks ons verskille. Honorable members, during my term, I've also seen the commitment of Shoprite Group to farm worker development. I want to thank them for supporting the Western Cape Prestige Agri Worker Forum as the main sponsor of the Agri Worker competition. But I'd also like to thank the Premier because I asked him to elevate the agri workers. I asked him, can we have on an annual basis meet the agri workers at the official residence of the Premier, Leeuwenhof? This year I've asked him, can we induct the Farm Worker of the Year, Agri Worker of the Year at Leeuwenhof? And I want to thank the Premier because he handed over the first jacket also to the chairperson, Wimpy Polser, as well as to our Agri Worker of the Year. But I also want to congratulate Wendy, if you can please stand. Wendy Peterson is the newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of SA Olives, and I want to wish her well in that new job, and thank you. My job, as the target I was given by the Premier, is to grow agricultural exports, and I'm going to look to you to help me export olive oils and olive in the rest of the world. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, every year the Western Cape agriculture sector meets at Bredasdorp for Nampo Cape. Thank you to all, especially Grain SA. They also have an exhibition downstairs. Bredasdorp, the sponsors of Agri, Overberg Agri and Cape Algala and the Overberg district municipalities. During my term as Minister of Agriculture in the Western Cape, we had to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. Agriculture was declared an essential service, and the agricultural sector had to work, and the agricultural sector thrived throughout the chaos. I want to put on record my deep thanks and appreciation to the citrus farmers because they also made huge donation. I want to thank the MPO, which is the milk producing organization, because they gave 1% of the daily milk production for humanitarian relief. And I want to thank Dr. Troutman and Dr. Sebo Petse because they also gave 100,000 Rand value of milk from our 2 dairy farms, one at Elsenburg and one at Outeniqua, also towards humanitarian relief during COVID. Now, many innovations emerged during COVID-19, and we witnessed the resilience of the sector. As a learning organization, we decided to document the experience of COVID-19 in agriculture and how it affected the industry. And so I want to thank our colleagues in the department, led by Dr. Trotsky and Mary and the team and everybody that contributed. The lessons of COVID-19 and how it impacted agriculture is now documented because we are a learning organization, and it's called Abundant Harvest, COVID-19 Warriors of Hope. This book documents the resilience of the sector, and Dr. Mogale, if we can also give a few copies to the library, because if the next pandemic comes, then we have the solutions of hope. Honorable Speaker, next week, I will meet the agricultural sector, where I will table my full record of delivery for the last 5 years. But, honorable members, I want agriculture in other provinces to also succeed. For this reason, we took our Sacramento plan to the agriculture MINMEC. I want to thank Dr. Troutman and Dr. Sepetse, because we developed a Sacramento agriculture plan. I don't want the Western Cape to succeed only. I want South Africa to succeed. And for that reason, I'm so happy that the MINMEC, the national minister, and all the 9 MECs have adopted our plan and have agreed that this is the way forward. I want to thank, through you, Speaker, Dr. Charles Wang from Taipei, that is also present in the House here today. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for discussions. Thank you for sharing the best practices. But more importantly, thank you for assisting our staff to visit Taipei, to experience innovation and technology, to experience trade relationships. And I want to thank you for your presence and your leadership in this regard. Over the next few weeks, South Africa will go to the polls, and I am willing and able to help the new National Minister of Agriculture under a DA-led government in the union buildings. Over the last weeks, I've been thinking, how can I help a new Minister of Agriculture? I've been thinking deep. Thinking deep requires thinking, which is absent in that side of the house. Thinking is a skill. So, together with my cabinet colleagues, we are working on a program called Ready to Govern. South Africa needs change, and change is coming. For this reason, Honorable Speaker, I am now tabling in this House. Can the table assistant please collect it to hand over to the Speaker? I'm now handing over to the Speaker a draft job description for the new National Minister of Agriculture in the union buildings, because it became abundantly clear that President Ramaphosa doesn't give guidance to his ministers. They have no clue what they do. So this is the job description of a new National Minister of Agriculture. And this House is making a contribution for the union buildings, and that's the job description. If the President Ramaphosa gave guidance, I would not have done that. But he's absent, he's nowhere, he's Tuma Mina, he's bang vir Zuma. Sy twak is nat. Honorable members, I also requested the members of the Prestige Agri-Worker Forum to go out and read stories to children on farms. I want to thank them, and thank you, Jackie, for sending me those videos of the agri-workers. I've asked that they go to farms and read to farm workers. I want to thank the members who shared the video of them reading stories to children on farms. It has a huge impact. Agbare Speaker, ek wil ook my opregte dank en waardering uitspreek aan my departementshoof, Dr. Mogale Sebopetse, en sy hele bestuurspan. Sedert sy aanstelling het die departement merkwaardig gegroei, en ek dink agbare van die Westhuizen het daarna verwys, en ek is trots op Dr. Mogale Sebopetse se leierskap, saam met sy ADG's Dr. Daryl Jacobs en Dr. Ilse Troutman, het die departement werklik nuwe hoogtes bereik. I'm equally thankful to Professor Johan Kirsten and his fellow board members and staff at Casidra. As the shareholder, I regularly meet with the board. They are professional, diligent, and I want to thank the CEO, Dr. Keith Du Plessis, if you can please stand, the Chief Executive Officer of Casidra, for his excellent leadership in stabilizing Casidra and improving good corporate governance. And he's an excellent manager, outstanding leadership, and a man that worked with his staff, and the change that he brought about is remarkable, effective, good corporate governance. I want to thank you. Honorable Speaker, this department, many years ago, there wasn't a department like this. And it was the Agri Expo that created this department. They initiated it, and I want to ask Brayton Mulford, the Chief Executive Officer or General Manager of Agri Expo, to please stand. I am proud. I am proud of his exceptional leadership, not only in the Western Cape youth shows, but in the agricultural shows, but also in the South African cheese. Anybody that goes to the SA Cheese Championship, no, he's the brain behind it. He and his team is working around the clock. And I am so thankful that this year he also brought the South African youth show to Clanwilliam. And I visited him, and he's done an enormous amount of work, because what he does is bring confidence to the sector. Confidence leads to investment, create jobs, and put people into a safe space. Thank you, Brayton. I'd also like to thank our colleagues from Exit, the false codling moth, if you can please stand. Thank you for the work. These colleagues are doing amazing work, producing, I think, more than 50 million false codling moth, release it into the citrus farms. They are exceptional in what they're doing, killing insects and bacteria and all sorts of stuff that I don't understand. We made the 2 million rand available. Thank you, Dr. Sebopetse, for that investment to citrus farmers, irrespective of your color. I did that because I understand the role of citrus in the world. South Africa is the second biggest exporter of citrus fruit in the world per volume after Spain. So for us, it is important to support the citrus industry. The biggest citrus industry in South Africa is in Limpopo. I want them to succeed. The second biggest, I went there, is in the Eastern Cape. I want them to succeed. We are the third biggest exporter of citrus fruit, and I want to thank you for outstanding leadership. I told all the people from Asia, eat our citrus, COVID will go away. I thank you. But colleagues, to table a budget, you need support from members of your cabinet. I want to thank firstly the Premier and my cabinet colleagues for supporting the voice of agriculture. My office is capably also managed by Ms. Marieke van Jaarsveld. She went about the task diligently and always walked the proverbial extra mile. Thank you to Daniel Johnson, my media liaison officer, and my private secretary, Samain de Vos, for the smooth operational support to me as the executive authority. But the most important person in my office is our kitchen executive, Mr. Poole, Nikki Hill. She's excellent. And so too are the receptionist, Zotwa, my registry clerk, Leslie Ann Diergaard, and our personal assistant, Cleo. Also want to thank Peter van Jaarsveld. She's the assistant in my office as leader of government business. Lastly, Speaker, I want to thank my wife, Faiza, and my two sons. Without them, it would not be possible for me to do this job. My wife ran a smooth ship at home, and I want to thank her for her loyalty, her love, and compassion. But if I try to give her instructions, she reminds me, you are the leader of government business in Parliament, not here. She's in charge. Sy sit my op my plek. Can I answer, can I add with a smile on the face? I want to thank my wife, but I also like to thank my friend for the last 30 years, Professor Said Bayat, because he's a voice that I listen to, a voice of reason. I listen to him about many things, especially international geopolitics. I listen to him in terms of what is happening globally in terms of tourism. He always advised me about the latest research, and I want to thank him for his loyal friendship for more than 30 years. But no one can do the job without the help of God. So I want to thank God for guiding me and Dr. Sebo Petzer when we were faced with difficult budget choices. I now call on this House to vote and support this budget vote 11, Department of Agriculture. And I also now call on members and staff to please visit the agriculture exhibition downstairs under the arches. Please join us to see the fruits of the labor of the farm workers and our farmers and our producers. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, honourable ministers, honourable members. That concludes the debate on this vote. The House will now be suspended until 2 p.m. And so the House will be suspended until 2 p.m. and then we will deal with the third order of the day, the debate on vote 10, infrastructure. The House is suspended.